Hi everybody, welcome to 8vbebop. This week's special guest is Ron Wilkins. New York City-based musician Ron Wilkins has been performing on tenor and bass trombones, euphonium, tuba, bass trumpet, and vocals for over 40 years. He has performed at the highest levels, touring around the world with his own groups as well as premier artists. Ron is a member of the Birdland Big Band, Dizzy Gillespie All-Star Big Band, and runs his own New York City Big Band alongside trombonist Rebecca Patterson, which features their writing and includes some of New York City's premier musicians. Ron's uncanny musicianship has led him to perform in many diverse musical genres. He has performed with artists such as Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, Rosemary Clooney, Lena Horne, Bob Hope, Jerry Lewis, Dizzy Gillespie, the Count Basie Orchestra, Mingus Big Band, The Temptations, Johnny Mathis, Jimmy Heath, John Faddis, Eddie Daniels, Randy Brecker, Wycliffe Gordon, and groups such as the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra, Jimmy Heath Big Band, Arturo O'Farrell and his Afro-Latin Jazz Orchestra, the Dizzy Gillespie All-Star Big Band and Small Group, Chris Potter Big Band, Ed Palermo Big Band, Affinity Brass Quintet, Uptown Brass Quintet, Livio Almeida Brazilian Dectet, Memo Acevedo's Building Bridges Band, San Antonio Brass, Capital of Texas Brass Quintet, San Antonio Symphony and Festival Orchestra, Austin Symphony and Austin Pops, Mid-Texas Symphony, Victoria Symphony, Temple Symphony, and the Flint Symphony, where he was twice featured guest artist for their Summer Pops concert series. Ron has performed with many theatrical productions, including the Big Apple Circus, Ringling Brothers, touring Broadway shows including Frozen, West Side Story, Wicked, The Lion King, Showboat, The Producers, Kinky Boots, Book of Mormon, Shuffle Along, Motown, and many others. He is currently a sub on the Broadway shows Wicked and Frozen. He was a featured artist on bass and tenor trombones at the International Trombone Festival in 2002 at the University of North Texas. Ron is a veteran of the United States Air Force Band of the West at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. Ron also has an extensive background as an educator. He has performed as a guest artist from elementary schools to university levels, jazz festivals, and has maintained his own private studio for decades. He has held positions at several colleges, including the University of Texas at San Antonio, University of Incarnate Word, Texas State University, Texas Lutheran University, Northwest Vista College, St. Mary's University, teaching low brass, jazz studies, and vocals. Ron has 2 CDs as a leader, A Tribute to the Masters from 2000 and The Bundy Brothers Bone Band 2005, with former Ringling Brothers lead trombonist Bill Gibson. As of October 2012, he was featured on a live recording with the Frank Wilkins Trio at Fishmonger Cafe in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Ron currently maintains his own private teaching studio and works with the New York Jazz Academy. Ron is a Shires trombone artist and plays Giddings mouthpieces. He has worked with Ivan Giddings to create his own signature line of mouthpieces. To find out more about Ron, listen to his music, and get in contact with him, be sure to visit his website, ronwilkins.net.
Tina, it's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you too, Ron. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm back in the saddle again, so to speak. Best part, doing like outpatient therapy now. I had like an incredible therapist work over my shoulders just to help me to go ahead and get a little bit more balance and stability going again so I can get back to my yoga practice. You understand what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But the other side of it too is that tomorrow I'm in San Antonio for a quick checkup, exactly. And afterwards I pick up my horns. They've been chem cleaned by this shop down in San Antonio, and the guys, I know they're really good. So I'll be able to get back on my bass and my small tenor again. Currently been practicing on the Shires large tenor.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Doing that, doing that as the workout and all that stuff with the favorite Giddings mouthpiece.
Mm-hmm. Is that the one that you were playing in that video recently that you posted? Like your first?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't even notice now that I think about it. I thought this as soon as the bass drum.
Well, it was like the first time getting back on the horn again after buzzing for about 5 minutes. And I figured that, the large tenor was the best way to go at that point because my bass and my small tenor were the horns I was practicing and using a lot of just before I got diagnosed with COVID. So even though it's been about, 3 months since I played on them, it's probably best to go ahead and just, better safe than stupid.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And at this point, not only am I my COVID free, but I have the antibodies now to where I don't really have as much of a chance to catch it again, which is great.
That is great.
But they're still trying to figure out the science behind all this, which is insane right now. I mean, there's not to mention, I'm back in Texas again, which means I've got Bubba and Bubba hanging out here not wearing masks.
Oh, yeah.
Is it any wonder why we had a spike in cases recently? Jeez. It's like, come on, people, wake the hell up.
I know there's like a bunch of people in Florida that are gigging right now, and they're like, oh, they're starting to have the masks required outside. And I'm like, wait a minute, so this whole time you guys have just been out here?
Yeah, that's just stupid. So how much can I go with the expletives?
You can do whatever. So as far as cursing goes, I don't think anybody has not cursed. I don't know if that's what you mean.
Oh, yeah. Well, living in New York for a while, you just, right?
Yeah.
You fucking get the idea. What the fuck?
Yeah. And then basically, so this is just, we're just kind of giving you the platform to just speak so that, everybody knows who you are already, but.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy too. The CNN interview was like stupid.
Oh, but before that though. Even,
I know. Well, thank you. But still, it was like, that was stupid. I think I've got like almost 70,000 views on that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. But hey, I'll throw it on my YouTube site and, eventually become a paid creator.
Yeah.
Yeah. For what that's worth. Anyway, I got the list of your questions as well. But I'm, every time I've hung out and done interviews like that, I love to freestyle.
Of course.
Yeah, we kind of figured that was going to happen, so we didn't, this is a really, fundamental, we usually kind of go a little bit more out on the questions.
Whatever you guys want to do is fine with me. I mean, I've been at this bag now since I started playing trombone at age 10, which is like 52 years ago. And I've gone through my 10,000 hours plus as far as what you need to do to be able to go ahead and develop a certain level of competences with that mastery. But the best thing about it now is that from having had the instruction I've had over the decades with the best in the world, it's made the biggest difference now because I don't think as much, or more so, I don't overthink when I'm playing. It used to be, and we all go through this at one point or another, whether you have an orchestral thing coming up when you have to go ahead and do a studio session, or you're playing on a big band or a small group, or you're playing chamber brass. There are times when we tend to overthink things. Like the first times when I started playing in orchestra at North Texas, I overthought the shit out of it. It's like, okay, it's tuba mirum. Ron, you're on second. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh shit, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. I hope I don't shit myself. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh shit. And literally, it's like, and all it is that I listened to the opera and I've studied it, and it's basically when the baritone comes out and sings tuba mirum spacenza, and you're just singing back to him. Once I got that in, I stopped overthinking shit, and it still took about 30 years. But with all the experiences that I went through in the process, it made it easier. Okay,
can you talk about doubling a little bit? Because your voice between the highest instrument and then down to tuba is pretty fluid. It seems effortless. So could you just talk to us about that?
Thank you. I'll be happy to. But first I'll say it took a lot of effort.
I believe it.
The best part about it was that after I'd gone through with, I was at North Texas and I was primarily a tenor trombonist, small board, large bore tenor. And then I got the call back in early '81 after auditioning to go and play with Clark Terry on his college all-star big band, which was like one of the greatest music experiences of my freaking life. But I didn't really start getting the doubling together until I got in the Air Force Band. And, I hawked the wares of the guys because it allowed me to go ahead and finish with the GI Bill and finish the undergrad as well as the graduate study. But more so, it just really gave me time to work on doubling. We would actually go out and tour with the band about 145 to 160 days a year. And when we weren't doing that, I was hanging out, taking care of family and such, but I was practicing my ass off. So it wasn't just about, coming in as a tenor trombonist. At one point, they needed a bass trombonist to go ahead and sub for the concert band, and these other people who were playing it, who were bass trombonists, really weren't. So I figured I'm going to play the instrument, and I'm going to go ahead and find my voice on it. So it was 1985, August. I remember in particular because I had some downtime. It's weird how you remember this shit. But I had some downtime, and I took a month off, and about 2 weeks of it I just spent on bass trombone figuring out mouthpiece combinations. The horn that they gave me over there at the band Squadron was a Binge 290. F G flat, gold bell, one of the best trombones I ever played. It's just, it's gorgeous. It fits in every setting. Not to mention Alan Raff, I believe, played one for a while, and he was endorsing it. Of course, Binge hooked him up. Mm-hmm. But still, those are just killer horns. They are kind of modeled along the same lines as the King 7B, I believe. No, Singsby, which is their bass version. Great horns and all, but never got as much recognition outside of studio work, But I ended up on that one in a Schilke 60 because I figured, okay, 60, ooh, And all of a sudden I had to encounter not only the depth and the diameter, but also the fact that it had a flat rim. And I wasn't used to playing on flat rims, so my response was faster, but my flexibility sucked. So the first 2 weeks were trying to figure that stuff out, and I stuck with the 60 for about 4 or 5 years. And then I discovered Greg Black mouthpieces. But by that time also, I had finished up time, around that time I had gotten off of the Binge, and I had hooked up through Bach and got this customized Bach 50B. Independent valves, just a great blowing horn. But then, like I said, I discovered Greg Black mouthpieces as well. So I went with this version of a 1.5, and then I went to a 1, and then I went even bigger because the more I was doing this, and it wasn't just bass trombone, but I was also working on my tuba chops. So I'm playing on these 2 different mouthpieces, but I'm using my buzzing exercises consistently on everything, just to make sure that my embouchure is going to adapt and adjust to the diameter as well as the depth. The bass trombone stuff started happening a little bit faster, in part because I was playing tuba. But I eventually ended up where I am now, which is on Giddings NYO, which was the same mouthpiece that Ivan made for Jim Markey up in Boston. Because Jim, talk about a doubler as well, tenor and bass trombone, and he's a virtuoso on both. It's frightening how good he is. But this particular mouthpiece was set up where it had a little bit more of a cushion rim, but it was about the size of a Schilke 66, if you can figure that one out. It makes a great contrabass bone mouthpiece. Oh. As well. So that kind of gives you a little bit more perspective because it's got still the wide enough rim and such. It's, it's about maybe, I'm going to say 1 to maybe 1.5 millimeters wider in cup diameter than a Schilke 60. But the cup itself is a little bit more V-tapered, but I also had Ivan put a little bowl on the back of it just because I like to be able to play with that little bit of resistance. So I got to that mouthpiece and I played it on Bach. I went through BAC with it. I was an Edwards clinician and artist for like 17 years. So I had them build me a Frankenbone series from alto to contra, to alto to bass with, in that case with the Edwards F G flat Thayers, but I also had the D slide. You ever seen one of those double wrap things?
Yes.
I call it the Halo. Yeah, and you can put it on your G flat slide and it turns it into a D. Right. Which means when you press both triggers, you've got a sharp B flat pedal, wow. Which was freaking stupid because that means I could play it like a contra.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But, still the size of a standard bass trombone. In fact, the first time I really used it was I got a call to sub with the Austin Lyric Opera, and they were performing some piece where they required a contra. So I came in and played, and the conductor looked at me like I was nuts. But he went with it because I got this fat-ass sound coming out. And, of course, you're playing down there an octave below the bass trombone for what that's worth. So I'm just doubling tuba lines. It was fun. I had to pull out a slightly modified hybrid bass trombone tuba piece at the time because I wasn't with Giddings, but I was working with, oh, my gosh. I went through so many. I was talking to the guys at Bach about this when they put something together. But still, trying to get that tubby sound coming from the beast. I finally ended up on Shires, which was like the happiest day of my life. I mean, I just love the horns, and I tout them often. Gina knows this from the times we had lessons. I'm going, look at this horn, it's pretty. And you know, but the thing is that the combination that I got that was put together for me at the time by Ben Griffin, who was the tech working with Shires, and Ben's another like freak of nature. His primary gig in the military was playing in the United States Coast Guard Band as their principal euphonium soloist. But he plays, this tenor trombone is his main act, but he sounds killer on large bore tenor as well as bass, does classical, does jazz. When he was living in New York about some 10 years ago, he was there in the city for about 7 years. He literally worked up the ranks fast because he was playing Broadway shows, he was doing the orchestral gigs, he was covering all the bases. But anyway, he worked with me at the Shires factory for 3 separate visits to put together the small tenor, the large tenor, and the bass. My large tenor and my bass both have true bore valves on them now because I just like the feel of the valve, but it's more open, so you have almost a Thayer-like presence with it. And the resonance coming out of these things is so good. It's just scary good. Basically, my evolution as a bass trombonist started in 1985. Here's a little backstory on it. Back in '79, the University of North Texas sponsored one of the first National Trombone Association conventions, and the guest artist was George Roberts. So I'm hanging out there with about 3 or 4 of my guys. You know, we're doing the jazz major thing, and like so it's like Coltrane, JJ. Who's Slide Hampton? Oh shit, Slide Hampton. We're getting into these cats and really studying them. And here's George Roberts, who comes up here and he brings on this Music -1 album that he had put together with the company, along with the rack with the mounted turntable and the big speakers on it. And he's playing these Frank Sinatra tunes, and he's playing along with them, talking about how to play like a singer. His whole idea was to be able to go ahead and utilize the human voice, and he loved Sinatra. So, of course, working with Music -1, he did a really nice clinic. It was lovely. But I'm hanging out with my guys in like 15 to 20 minutes, and it was like, yeah, he sounds great. Let's get out of here and go get high. And we did, you know, it was the season. But then here I was years later, and I'm taking a bass trombone, and who's the first guy I check out? Meet Mr. Roberts from that one of his earliest, if not his first solo album. And all of a sudden I got to thinking about this, because that's a studio bass trombone, but that kind of sound could carry over in any genre. The guy was just so consummate on the instrument and brought it to the commercial spotlight that people hadn't seen before. You've had classical players like Edward Kleinhammer, among others, who were known for their orchestral presence, the sound and the carry, and how it anchored the section and the bridge between trombone and tuba or the occasional euphonium. And yeah, I mean, he was like a forerunner. And then, of course, you got guys like Douglas Yo, modern day monsters like my good friend out in Vancouver, Elon Morgenstern, who is just a fucking beast. I hope he gets to hear this. I'll make sure he knows when that this is on. I started getting this sense from hearing classical bass trombonists. And then when I heard George Roberts, it's like, that's the sound. I found out later that he was playing on like this souped up version of a Con 62 with a single valve on it, where you could go ahead and adjust the slide to get the little beat to speak. And it just blew me away. But like I said, the first one that I played on was a Binge 290 with dual independent valves. And I just got used to it. But after George Roberts, I went back to the classical side and started listening to Charlie Vernon and studying everything that he could do on the instrument. Then from there, I was checking out guys like Earl McIntyre playing with the Mingus Band, and before him, Doug Proviance, and realizing, yeah, man, brothers can play this shit too, you know. And Earl in particular blows me away. He's a consummate professional. Not to mention he's got this Shires custom bass with the true bores on it, but he's got this sterling silver bell that's like one of the very few that Shires made for the bass trombone. And it's like, dude, you sound like you've got like a souped up duo gravis. And he's like, yeah, that was the idea. Yeah, that's what I wanted. God, that was almost a good impersonation.
Now he has to watch the episode and say.
Oh, I'll let him know. The thing is that I miss New York so bad. I do. But honestly, with everything going on up there, or as little as going on, and now, of course, I already knew about this, but the Broadway League announced that Broadway's not going to open up until early January. Not to mention the Phil, the Met, they're all out. Museums probably won't open up until later in the fall. The whole cultural thing has changed, not to mention now freelancing went by the fucking wayside. I mean, literally, it's like the bottom dropped out. It reminds me of some friends of mine who were up here doing 9/11. But 9/11 only lasted maybe about a week before things came back. This is going on months now. And that's one of the frightening parts about this. Just because this is a disease that, as you've heard from the scientific community and others who are trying to be more woke about it, this thing doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, black, white, brown, red, yellow. It can fuck you up. And in my case, it almost killed me just because over 6 years ago, I had a kidney transplant from my kidney sister, who I loved dearly. And everything's fine on that end. But the problem is that I have an immunosuppressed system. So something like this, especially with a guy in even my early 60s, I've still kept up with like my exercise regimen as well as the intakes of vitamins and minerals. But this thing laid me out for like 32 days in a medically induced coma. And that's just fucked up. I have no recollection of it. I thought I was out for a week. And when I woke up, I thought I was still in April, and I found out it's nearing mid-May. And I was like, shit.
That must have been like shocking.
Yeah. I mean, I we can pick various terms or, things to say about it, but I was just stunned. I was just totally stunned. I have never experienced that kind of a feeling before, and knowing afterwards that I was near death. It's surreal. It's I've overused that word so freaking much, but I can't really describe anything else. It wasn't about like at one point I saw darkness, at one point I saw light, and I went to the light. Is a determination that I've had ever since I was a kid that was instilled in me in my parents, that, having your faith is one thing and relying upon that, but you've got to have faith in yourself. And that's the thing that I really drew on when I was going through all this. I was not going to give up. I was not going to quit. I was going to come back and be stronger and better than ever. And by God, I'm doing that. The crazy thing is that I'm down here in Austin now, and I've got time to do it. And thankfully, working, of course, with my good friend Becca Patterson, along with another former vocalist or another former student of mine, Nadine Mansour. They put together the fundraiser for me, ronsroadtorecovery.com. And it's been great. It's been absolutely great. I don't have to worry about funding and such. But the thing is that, I got medical bills that have already come in that have totaled around $15,000. And then also, because of being intubated, where they put the tube down, you chipped my right rear molar. So that's going to be another surgery of around $7,000. So, I mean, it's just letting people know that this shit is real. I mean, I had one guy post on one of the social pages about, it's a shame he has to rely on donations. It's like, this is what I do for a living. I'm an artist. I'm a musician. I'm a creative. I don't have the desk job. I've heard this for decades. It's like, oh, yeah, that's great, but what do you do for a living? It's like, I teach your kids at $150 an hour, goddammit. That's what I do. And you will pay it because your kids like me more than they'd like you at this stage in their lives. So take that. It's so stupid. I'm sure you guys have heard this at one point from teaching. The student comes to you and some young kid, and they say, "You're so good." And the parents say, "They listen to you more than they listen to me, so tell them to clean their room."
Yeah.
Exactly, all the time.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, what are we missing in the degree of separation here?
So we were talking about Ron's Road to Recovery. You're there with Becca. You're in Austin now.
Yeah, thank you. And just spending time practicing.
Yes. Yeah.
Brava. Hey, listen, I'm still recovering from that last physical therapy session. We did lower ab work with one of the exercise balls, and it kicked my ass. I felt good until I got on the exercise bike for like 15 minutes. And the first 5 were like, shit, I'm pedaling it at a 90-degree angle right now. This is ridiculous. But all that stuff has helped me to get back to being where I was, if not better. And at this point, I'm about 75% of where I was. Which is considering where I was before this, because after I came out of the hospital, I had lost 40 pounds of muscle mass. Needless to say, I've gained it back, but unfortunately, most of it is below the diaphragm area.
Yeah.
So I'm working on that side of the house. Thank you. But that's the physical therapy, and not to mention the occupational therapy, where I've got this incredible therapist who loves music, and can't wait until she comes out and we can have live music going on down here, because Austin's known for this stuff. Anyway, she's been actually doing these exercises that have been loosening my tendons in my shoulders here, because all the years we were sitting here and we're playing like this, or if you want to switch the other hand, you still keep one arm motion stabilized as much as you can to go ahead and minimize movement on the embouchure, and yet you're all over the place like this. And I mean, it's like it kind of puts you at a slight slope.
Yeah.
So she was noticing that with me, along with my posture, and just pretty much has been adjusting me. And now, after 2 weeks, I'm already doing certain things better, not in terms of the way I walk, but when I'm sitting in a car and I take sometimes like you can take a roll of paper towels, but more so take a towel and wrap it up into a roll, put it behind your back around your lower lumbar region.
Yeah.
And when you sit with that or drive with that even, it actually helps you to go ahead and keep your spine more erect.
I'm thinking about my posture.
Yeah, well, hey, we're boneheads. Don't worry about it. Gina, you and I have discussed these things already, so
Yeah.
I know you hear what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the therapy I'm getting now for being stretched around and such is really starting to help me to be able to go ahead and get back to holding on to what I'm used to, playing out the horn at a better posture.
That's great.
Yeah, it's really helped. But it's taken a while, because like I said, I was basically out of it for about a month, and when I came to, I was still on a ventilator for like 5 days, because they wanted to make sure that I could still get to breathing on my own. The best part about that is when that finally came off the ventilator, and they're going, "Oh yeah, man, you're taking in air, you're doing oxygen, you're doing great." And I was like, well, of course, bitches, I'm a low brass player.
Yeah, represent.
Absolutely. The best part about that was, for decades, I mean, back in 1978, my instructor, Royce Lumpkin, insisted that we go ahead. Yeah, by the way, nice job. You go, Gina. My instructor insisted upon me learning how to use an incentive spirometer.
What is,
And just to work on, not just gauging your air from the exhale, but more so from the inhale, to go ahead and gauge your, lung capacity, and from there to actually improve on it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my lungs are the same size as they were by the time I was like 18, but it's the way I use my lungs and my capacity now that makes it so much more efficient in playing. Last night I got back on tuba again, and it felt so fucking good, because I'm over here in pedal register, and it's like you literally feel everything in your body vibrate when you hit like the pedals.
Yes.
Now, not just bass trombone pedals, but 8vb, those pedals on tuba, and it's just like you get this warmth and this resonance, and it's like, oh my God, I need a cigarette after that. That's
Yeah.
It's just it was just otherworldly. But the other thing now is that, having gone through all this and then gone through as much therapy, after I got out of the critical care unit at Northeast Baptist Hospital, which is where they took me in and they diagnosed me with COVID and went through all the procedure with me, I was transferred over to the PAM Specialty Hospital in New Braunfels, Texas, about 35 miles north, to go ahead and start my rehab treatments. And literally I went in there like a newborn baby. I couldn't move. I couldn't, if it's just like, it's time to shit, okay, here it comes. And, it was frustrating, trying to hold a toothbrush for the first time and be able to brush your teeth. But literally within 3 weeks, I'm brushing my teeth with either hand, working with these guys. I was there for about 6 weeks, and they got me from the point where, I was coming in at about 170 pounds. I got up to about 191.
Nice.
And, put some weight back on, and just started to become more independent again. I literally cried happy tears when I was able to stand up again by myself. It's like one of those moments where all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, I got to get up, use the bathroom. And I got up and I just went, oh my God. It was just
Yeah.
very powerful. And it's amazing because here we are now at this stage where we're used to walking and talking and doing all these things with our bodies and such. And you know, it's like you might remember when you were a baby learning how to walk and you would fall and you know, there's times you would cry, but then you stopped crying because you realized that you wanted to be able to get up and walk around like mommy and daddy.
Mm-hmm.
And you just did it. So I use that kind of determination again to go ahead and help me with the help of my therapist, Robin and Jimmy in particular. They got me back on my feet. And I had told the guys when I was able to go ahead and talk, because the trach tube didn't affect my vocal cords any, which is great because I'm singing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I know, I'll take it. It just worked out to where I'm able to get back to where I was. You know, once I got back home here now in Austin, I started buzzing on the mouthpiece and getting my chops back on that because I'm a huge advocate for mouthpiece buzzing. For those who free buzz, and I do that on occasion, I was doing that in the hospital, in fact, to help me get my chops back on. But you get used to the fact that when you free buzz, that's great, except you don't have a rim diameter around your chops. So you have to have that perspective. I can use an amateur visualizer, and I have one somewhere in my boxes that we're still unpacking here. But, you know, I ended up maybe making the okay sign like this. In certain countries, this would not be the thing to do.
Yeah.
But in this one, making an okay sign and just buzzing octaves.
Yeah.
Then when I got back onto the mouthpieces again, starting with the bass trombone mouthpiece, and then the large tenor, and then the tuba mouthpiece, everything started to come together faster. But all of a sudden now, once again, I'm having to go ahead and go in the rim diameter itself. And that took about a week. I'm back on the horns now for just about, as of today, 2 weeks. And the first time when I did it, I played Lift Every Voice and Sing in honor of being a black man in America who's finally getting some street cred from you guys now. I say this not just to your ancestors, my son and daughter, but to you as well. So yes, black lives do matter, and then all lives can matter because black lives do matter, just like brown lives, which means all lives. But let's just get to the black lives part first because that's in a shit ton. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm glad you guys are artists. Thank you.
I got a question.
What you got?
I got a question for you.
Yeah, man.
So you're actually in a situation I think that's very unique from others because all of us are, even I won't speak for everybody, but many people right now are at the stage where everyone's been in the shed and practicing and just trying to keep motivated. But for your situation, you're really now getting back into the horn and you seem like you're very excited to keep playing and practicing and getting back.
Hell yes.
So what advice would you give to people right now on how to stay motivated?
Okay. We'll just put it first off into a very basic question. Do you love music?
That's a great question. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, because if we do this, why are we going through all of this playing and schlepping shit if you didn't love music, if you didn't love what you do? Music is an integral part of us. It gives us meaning. It gives us breath. It gives us a source of income. And more than anything else, it can spread so much joy. And to me, that's one of the real things behind it. I still love making music on a bass trombone. It's my voice outside of my human voice. But the other thing is that I love making music on tuba. I mean, I can play for your great grandparents as well as playing for your future children, and they'll love it because you're making music. Yeah. I mean, you can cover tunes like, you know, and we've been doing this in jazz for literally a century, covering pop songs of the day and putting them into a jazz context. You know, I was listening the other day to Brad Mehldau and listening to his interpretations on some popular tunes, but the way he would interpret them would give them a whole different meaning of life. And to me, it's like so creative and innovative. I went back to some Herbie Hancock stuff on an album he did back in the, I'm going to say the late 90s, if not early 2000s, called The New Standards. And he's covering tunes like by the Eagles and Prince and among others. And it's great shit. And yet the one thing that they maintain throughout this, in Meldau's case, as well as in Herbie Hancock's case and so many others, is that they stay true to the roots of jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's imperative. So, I mean, and going back to what you were saying earlier about, you know, how does one stay motivated on something like this? Do you love music? Yes. What do you love about music? Is there a particular music that you love? Can you play that music? Can you play it in all 12 keys? Can you play it using altered dominant? Can you play it using subtones? Can you play it using, can you play it 8vb, 15bb, 15ba? You know, can you hold a conversation with a bird? Can you hold a conversation with deer? Can you hold a conversation with people? On the horn, yes. Off the horn, because we're still people.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to relate across to that. I think this has been one of the biggest things that's gotten me back to the sense of where I am now. I love practicing the instrument because I know the music that is in my head is much better than what I'm able to play right now. So I want to get that shit out.
Mm-hmm.
And the other side of it too was being intubated and being through all this stuff. When I came out of it again, all of a sudden I had like 5 new tunes in my head. So I got to get to work on those for the small group as well as for the big band, which leads me to the next project, which is finished. My master is being finished up for the new album coming out. Ron Wilkins, trombocalist.
Ayo.
Thank you. Thank you. I got bass, tenor trombone, and tuba on it, along with my buddy Becca, who gave us 2 songs. Mercedes Beckman. I don't know if you knew Mercedes.
I went to school with Mercedes.
Oh, cool.
I went to high school with Mercedes.
Oh, geez.
And undergrad, like.
Oh yeah, that's just nuts. You look so young. Look at you.
Well, I think we overlapped like the last moment.
Yeah. If you don't know about Mercedes, Mr. Glassman, she's a badass.
Oh, I've checked her out. She's amazing.
Yeah. She's up with the Jazz Ambassadors now up in Fort Myer.
Yeah.
And just playing her butt off. But you know, I always felt this strong connection with her, just because we're nuts.
Yeah, she is so funny.
She is so kooky, man. And she cracked me up the first time I met her. And of course, the high five from hell that she gives you.
Man, she gives it like all the way from the back.
Oh yeah,
like a hip high five.
Oh my God, yeah, with about 50 pounds of torque behind you.
Yeah.
Shit. Fortunately, you know, for the trombone, whether you're left or right-handed, you got a dominant hand, so you use that one just to handle the blow because it's intense. First time she did that, she's like, yeah, and I'm like, holy shit, you're cool. Let's hang out. And next thing you know, then we're doing jam sessions and shit, and it's like, damn. She reminds me of times of what would happen if Arthur Blythe had a kid with Gary Bartz. She's got that eclecticity and that angularity to her playing, but her tone is so solid and at times smooth. And then when she starts going off on her improvisation, she always uses alter tones on it. She'll use like the raised fourth or the plus 11. She'll go off on like Lydian dominant, if not Lydian augmented. And she has all these patterns off of them that she uses, but now it's not thinking as much about them as it is instinctive.
Yeah.
It's become that much of her voice now. And I mean, that to me is like, first time I heard her, I'm like, oh, cool, sharp 11, let's go. You know, hey, it's a Woody Shaw moment. Anyway, so with her on alto on the new album coming out, along with Becca playing bass trombone, and we're doing some tenor trombone stuff on another tune she wrote called Spring in Bennett Park, which is this park up in Washington Heights. I'm singing on 5 of the songs. And a buddy of mine years ago when I was in San Antonio, he was working as a jazz DJ, retired Navy officer guy. I came up with the idea, man, you sing and play so much and you do the same things, we're just going to call you a trombocalist. So this album coming out is Ron Wilkins, trombocalist, pretty much my New York band. I've been working with the guys with the Dizzy Gillespie All-Star Big Band. So I've got John Lee, who's the pretty much Dizzy's foster child. Yeah. And I played bass with him for like the last 20 plus years of Dizzy's life. So, I mean, he's got a legacy on him. And we've been using his studio, working with some of the guys from the band like Jeff Patton, who's a phenomenal jazz pianist, beautiful player. He and I did some magic stuff on My Foolish Heart, and also a duo that we did based on Waltz for Debbie by the Bill Evans tune. And with him, also John playing bass along with a buddy of mine, Ray Setta, who was the bassist and sousaphone player for Chicago in New York. I've always loved Jaco Pastorius, and anybody who can channel Jaco is fine with me. Ray channels the fuck out of Jaco. He's the 6-string electric bass, and he's like all over it. It's like, you know, cat shirtless, feeling it, got the long hair and the sweat going. It's like, you know, I know you want to be Jaco, dude, but what you're doing right now is pretty killer. He's on bass along with John, and then of course Jeff Barone on guitar. My buddy from out of Syracuse, my mistake. Every time I see him, he goes, "Hey Ron, how's it going, man?" It's like, oh, there's that accent. You just gotta love it. What a badass, total badass on electric and acoustic guitars. With those guys on there, along with the great Tommy Campbell on drums, who's played with everyone, in particular Dizzy. I used to watch Tommy on videos back in the 90s when the Downbeat Awards were still going on PBS. And Tommy was one of the featured cats on there one time, and then the following year was Jack DeJohnette, and the following year was Tony Williams, or before that. And it's like, this cat's heavy. So here I am meeting him later, and he's got this one particular thing that he does, which is incredibly creative and musical. He'll be in the middle of a drum solo, and he'll pull out these little inflatable pigs, like little, like, you know, dolls. But they all have a different pitch on them. So he'll start playing those. Next thing you know, he pulls out another one and another one. He's got 4 of these pigs going on the drum set while he's doing all these rhythms, and everything fits. But when you hear the pigs going off with the drums, you're like, what the fuck is with this guy? And I'm sitting there on the Mingus band with him, and he's starting to do this stuff on one of those features. I'm just turning around. I'm trying to keep from cracking up. But it's like, it just blew me away with his facility and his talent. He ended up on drums on my album. You know, he's not doing the pig thing on it, but it's cool. It's cool. Along with one of my dearest friends now that I've been so happy to get to know, Freddie Hendrix on trumpet. Freddie is a modern day warrior. He is out of the school of Clifford Brown and Woody Shaw and Dizzy. And, you know, we talk about great trumpeters out there like John Faddis, of course, or Nicholas Payton. Oh my gosh, Ryan Kaiser, Wynton, of course. And Freddie is not only up there on par with these giants, but at times surpasses them just with his fluidity, his fire, his melodicism, his depth of theory and chordal knowledge. And he's just one of the sweetest people on earth. When I was going through my stuff, when I was still out of it, back in mid-April, Becca and Nadine put together this little concert series that's on my Facebook page that the guys like Jeff Barone and Freddie Hendrix and some other people, Eyal Vilner, whose shirt I'm wearing today and representing.
Nice.
I'm on the album! My mother would be so proud. Freddie and I were playing together, and I became a member of the Dizzy Gillespie All-Star Big Band. And I would have him behind my head along with times with Faddis or Frank Green, Greg Gisbert, you know, the chair that unfortunately was left vacant after Roy Hargrove passed. But it was filled with guys like Diego Urcola, Claudio Roditi, you know, God bless him. Oh my gosh, Bruce Harris, Mike Rodriguez, holy shit, you know, talk about a fire breather. And at one time, I think we had Ingrid Jensen on playing, which was just like a breath of fresh air. I love her playing. She's got that Canadian thing going on with the chops, and it's just magnificent. Fluid range, just like 4 octaves on a flugelhorn or a trumpet. And she's all over the place, but it makes sense. And she can swing. Holy shit, she can swing. It's frightening. But anyways, you know, working with players, like I said, like Freddie on the album, and then yours truly, it just gave me this framework that I could go ahead and bring out my compositions along with do some of my favorite tunes from various artists. When I was growing up and listening to my dad's record collection, he was really big into novelty songs. And in particular, these artists who I found out later was the great Slam Stewart, bassist who would actually go ahead and like scat sing along with his bass playing. So he'd be singing his lines while he's playing the acts, you know, along the lines of he's playing the whole thing while he's singing it, which is just amazing, fucking amazing. And him and Slim Galliard, who played guitar, they do these novelty songs like the Cement Mixer, among others, Java Jive. And I got into that. And then later on, as I'm studying improvisation and sitting in the jam sessions in San Antonio with this wonderful band called Small World, the leaders of the band were Kyle Keener and Polly Harrison. Kyle was huge into vocal groups like the Singers Unlimited, the Four Tops, the High Notes, or High Tones, and in particular, Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross. So we would work up those tunes and perform them along with his partner, Polly Harrison, who was a phenomenal 7-string guitarist. We used to call her Polly Pizzarelli because she'd hang out with Bucky and John, and they all played the same 7-string Italian crafted guitar made by this gentleman named Benedetto. You know, one of those retails, the initial list these days is probably around $68,000 for this guitar. Everything's handmade, ivory laid, everything. It's just, in the hands of a master, it's beautiful. And in the hands of me, it's like, I might as well use it as a broom. That's what I get for being a bonehead. Kyle and Polly turned me on to Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross. And that got me into what they did in terms of their novelty songs like Cloudburst, or one of my favorites, Give Me That Wine. No particular reference to the fact that I enjoy wine. But I decided to use that particular song on the new album coming out, along with, of course, the Bill Evans tune, Waltz for Debbie. A really, really cool tune that's on the album that most people haven't heard in at least 60 years. It's called In the Land of Oobla-Dee, and it was written by Mary Lou Williams and performed by the Dizzy Gillespie Band with Joe Dixon on vocals and Dizzy. And the first line of it goes, I met a beautiful princess in the land of Oobla-Dee. I said, Spa-da-da-da-oola, meaning you appeal to me. She said, Ooba-da-da-da-blee-doo, meaning I will always be in love with you in the land of Oobla-Dee, Oobla-Dee. And the hip thing about this is that it's got incorporating scat and vocalese and the flat 5. You know, once again, da-da-dee. And I mean, I fell in love with this tune. It tells a story. Not to mention, Freddie plays his fucking ass off on it, along with Jeff Patton. And I'm just scat singing. This is one of those where I just get to be the vocalist. I don't really play any trombone on that one. But I mean, stuff like that always appealed to me, and I eventually wanted to be able to get to a point where I could do that music and perform it. So this is coming out at this point right now. I should have it out. I'm working with Nick Finzer with his label called Outside Music. Gina, look into them.
Okay.
Look into them. Chris, you too. They work with a lot of the New York cats, you know, on the scene like that. Steve Feifke's one of the artists on it, along with Alexa.
Weaver.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, it's like, it's a co-op. You know, you put in so much money on it, you can go ahead and get like connections with publicists, with agents, with you know, management as may be needed. But it allows you then to get your material out to a broader audience faster. And that's the next step with me, along with, of course, doing the streaming services, which you don't make shit on, but, you know, people hear it. And if they're over in Siberia and they're going, in the land of Oobla-Dee, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'm good with that. I figure that by the time that's said and done, given this how we're just about to get into July, I should have everything together with press and all, and release should happen by about mid-August.
Oh, awesome. That's
Great.
good.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
6 weeks. We're finishing the mastering now. Plus, I'm putting together my liner notes and my set order for the tunes. I got to get that over to John so that he can go ahead and look at them, because with his mastering, he's putting everything into its order. So that's tonight's project, along with about 2 hours of practice.
Can you talked a little bit about the scene in Austin.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the scene there comparatively to here?
Multiply Austin by 100 and you might have Brooklyn.
Whoa.
Yeah, but the thing with Austin is that it's a smaller scene. There's a lot of different acts here. You know, they call it the Latin music capital of the world, and in part because you got 6th Street, which is affiliated through, by no means, but all means, of course, the University of Texas. College students hit this place, and there's like one particular strip where you'll see up to 170 different bars with a band in it.
Wow.
It's like going down the French Quarter in New Orleans, but you know, the guys at the French Quarter make more money. But anyway, there's a ton of live music that happens here. Of course, you got the show Austin City Limits as well. From about the year 2000 to about 2012, I was going back and forth between San Antonio, hometown, and Austin, touring Broadway shows and different acts that would come through, and then getting in and playing with the Austin Symphony as well as with the Austin Pops and the Austin Symphony Big Band, which was like, that was a lot of fun. Normally at this time in the summer, we'd be doing concerts outside the Long Center down here, which is this beautiful, like incredible amphitheater, but it's got this huge sloping hill that people can come out there on their blankets and such and listen to early to modern big band and check out the vocalists of the day. But anyway, there's a lot of guys here in Austin who have been to New York, who have lived in New York and worked there. And there's a lot of guys who are in New York who have been there for a while now and moved to Austin. In particular, you know Aubrey Logan?
Yeah.
Yeah, she moved here.
Oh, dope.
Wow.
I think I knew that, actually.
Yeah. The word had been out for a little while, but, I found out about that recently as well. And I'm like, oh, I hope I get to bump into her. But she's doing a ton of stuff right now.
Oh, yeah.
From the Postmodern Jukebox gig, and now she's got a bunch of workshops over in Europe, which should be okay for her to get over there now, just because as of like this coming week, they're shutting down travel from the U.S. just because we can't seem to get our act together in terms of how to deal with the coronavirus.
Probably wise to do it this way.
Well, it didn't have to be this way.
Yeah.
But hey, that's why it's up to you people. Hang on, I'm drinking to you now.
Okay, I'll drink to you too. Cheers.
Cheers.
Gotta have the juice, kids. Fantastic. Austin has two viable and working jazz clubs. One of them, which is one of the oldest in the state, the Elephant Room, which has been going for over like 28 years now. Jazz 7 nights a week. And then, of course, one of the newer ones, which was actually started by a guy who used to study with me and my good friend Morgan King down in San Antonio when we had a jazz camp we were running. A young man named Chris Kimura, multi-woodwind player, saxes primarily, but also flute, clarinet, piccolo. Yeah, he should be working on Broadway, but he decided to be stupid and open his own jazz club. It's called Parker Jazz, and you should check them out because they do a regular, like 2 nights or 3 night a week show. Where they'll go ahead and feature the local band. What you got?
Parker Jazz. That's where your concert happened, right?
Actually, they did a benefit concert for 2 nights for me and raised.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking. We talked about that in, I think it was like the first 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, something like that. And we were trying to get people to go to that. That's why I was like, I know, I recognize that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love those guys. I love those guys. Well, it was like almost 2 years ago where I played there as a guest artist, and I had a wonderful weekend with those guys. All highly professional, great hang. Of course, you're working over in Parker Jazz, and Chris owns the place. He did with his partner, but now the partner decided to back out, so Chris is taking full responsibility for it and working harder than any human being or any 5 human beings should have to work. But he's trying to keep jazz going. And this place is really nice. It's an upscale room. It's it would be like like Birdland at about a 5th the size. Yeah. But it's like, state-of-the-art studio gear, and everything, with artist consent gets recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a hot room. He had the Basie band in there about 8 months ago, performing, and they just swung the house down. But he's involved with like working with his own band as well as doing regional and local acts, as well as some national. I think recently the latest one he had was Sean Jones come in and play. It's either Sean or it might have been Nicholas Payton. I can't go wrong with either.
Yeah.
But at this point right now, as a lot of you guys know, a lot of the clubs aren't working. And of course, in living down here, they decided to fucking open the state up sooner than they should have. And now we got an influx of cases again, so now they close everything back down again. It's like, why can't you guys get this right? I left Texas because of this kind of bullshit, to hang out in New York and witness their bullshit. So I come back here now and it's like, oh God, same old bullshit.
Actually, over here, it's kind of getting a little bit better too.
They're
reported like less cases in the hospital now.
Yeah, I've been checking out Cuomo. He's actually done pretty good, but I have to remember other parts of him that aren't so good.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, it is what it is. That's what you get for living in the city. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I miss it though. I really do.
You're coming back, right?
I'll be back in about 2 years.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and just take my time here. Besides, I lived in Austin literally from that time of 2000 to 2012, playing all these shows and such, and teaching and working with different band directors. And down here in Texas in particular, if you want to be able to work as a musician, you're going to find yourself doing private instruction. And you can literally take up to 100 students a month if you're that crazy. The most I ever did was 80. And that
so
was
you're
just,
almost that crazy.
No, well now it's like my rates have gone up a lot, so I don't see many people.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. All of a sudden, I got all this street cred now because, oh my God, he survived COVID. Yeah, that'll be $250 an hour. Yes, Joe, Alessi, I'll give you a lesson.
But
No
it's
problem.
not like that. No, you know what it is? I think it
No.
is.
What?
I think you're a legend, and everybody realized, like, man, we almost lost you.
Yeah.
We got to
well,
get our
everyone was-
time with you.
Everyone was
Yeah.
panicking.
Everybody,
Oh.
the entire scene blew up. It was yeah.
I got a call from one of my friends in Denver who knew about
Yeah.
you, and they were like, "Man, I heard that Ron Wilkins is, he's
wow.
in a coma right now." I was like, "Yeah, it's really
Everybody.
everybody was talking about you."
I'm trying to think if I owe anybody money in Denver.
Like, man, yes, check that $300 check for that
Yeah,
gig.
That's it. They never paid me at the Chapultepec.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Live from the Peck, man.
That's
I love
right,
that
live from
place.
the Peck.
Live from the Peck, baby. But there's this other place there called Dazzle.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Doing some
Dazzle.
really good things now. In fact, great buddy of mine and wonderful jazz trombonist Stafford Hunter moved about 2.5
Yes.
years ago from New York there to Denver, and he's a bad boy.
Yeah.
He actually gave me a phone call about a week or so ago. Just like, I heard that you died. It's like, yeah, that's why we're having this conversation. Welcome to hell. I love that cat, man. We played together with Jack Jeffers, New York Orchestra, a big band,
Yeah.
and did some other gigs together. Stafford's a bad boy. He's certainly a bad boy. And we always had a good time with each other. At times, the ribbing session would get a little rugged, but it's a black thing. Anyhow.
So I actually have another question for you too.
Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit. You're talking about teaching and with students, and before you were in the hospital, you were doing a live show I think it was every day, wasn't it?
It was.
I-
Oh yeah, right. Your warm up.
The warm up, and you would play along, and
We scheduled this to make sure it wasn't during your warm up.
right.
Aw.
We were hoping it would be
really.
like when you were like a little kid and watching the double show.
I'll be getting back to that. One of the things too, being
Dope.
down here in Texas, is that with the University of Scholastic League, they have all these different type of solo and chamber ensemble competitions. Well, the audition material for the All-State Jazz Bands is coming out soon.
Nice.
So I did for years a video of me playing all three of the tenor trombone etudes of the different styles and then doing them on bass trombone. So I'm going to get back to doing that as well because number one, it still helps me to get my chops in better shape because some of that stuff is rugged. It really is. And others parts of it are angular. In fact, I don't know if you know my buddy Alton Seneclar.
Of course.
Haven't heard of him.
Okay.
He's only he's my boy.
Anyway, Alton and I remember when he was a snotty-nosed punk.
He's not now.
I hope he's watches this.
I know he will. I know, and
He
he's
will.
gonna text me.
He will. Alton knows I love him. Matter of fact, he lives up north of me here in Pflugerville, so we were already trying to set up when we were going to get together. I said, see you in late July. I'm just going to wait until the plague passes for a little bit more.
That's
People
right. Yeah.
People start wearing masks more often for us to curb this thing. But he and I have always gotten along really well, and I've always enjoyed watching him play, and especially after he was studying up there at Michigan State with Deese. Mike has this way of teaching that's like gets you everybody to just bring out their best and to learn and appreciate what it takes to really play the instrument in a jazz setting. He's a bebopper, man, but then he gets on a saxophone and does this. Pick a sax, or he'll do it on a clarinet, or he'll do it on, it's just stupid. But when he's on tenor trombone in particular, it's just stellar.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely stellar. In fact, because he was playing in the Dizzy Big Band before I was, there's this one version of Around Midnight that Slide Hampton wrote that has this really killing trombone solo in it. It's on one of the recordings, and Deese is playing it, and he he does this incredible set of licks on it. I mean, just melodic, fluid, gorgeous sound, just facility out the ass. So here I am years later, I'm hanging out with John Lee, and John was telling me about that album. He says, man, Mike was having the toughest time playing that and figuring it out. He actually wrote out the solo and used it. And there's this one point where at the end of it, the end of the tune where Roberta Gambarini's singing it, and she ends the tune. It ends on an A major chord to slide to some beautiful harmonic structuring throughout. Ends on an A major chord. She ends on the flat 5 of that chord, and then Dees comes in and plays the introductory lick to Round May, ba-da-ba-doo-doo-wee, ba-doo-wee, ba-doo-wee. And it was perfect. It was perfect. I was just like, who the fuck is this guy? And then I found out, you know, because back in 2002, I was the guest artist at North Texas for the International Trombone Association. And they gave me a jazz set, which was cool. But I was also one of the judges for the jazz competition. I think it was Carl Fontana, and Dees was one of the contestants for that.
Wow.
So I didn't know this, of course, you know, until I'd seen him and heard him play, and I'm like going, oh yeah, okay, yeah. He didn't win, but afterwards he came to my set that Sunday night, the last night of it, and it's crazy because it's one of those sets where I'm playing, and you know, by the second set, Charlie Vernon walks in, you know, Alan Raff walks in, Christian Lindbergh walks in, Ian Bousfield walks in, and they're all ready to go ahead and just get their drink on. Mm-hmm. And I'm up here and I'm playing. I've got the small tenor, I got the large tenor, I got the bass. I'm doing the Edwards thing, and I decided to just play more bass than anything else because I knew that I would have the greatest facility on it, and it would let me say what I wanted to say in 7 octaves. And I had a blast. And you know, I'm inviting Dees to come up, and some of the other guys who are out in the audience, some of my former students who were there at the workshop. Mike and I got to talk afterwards a little bit. And then here I was years later, and I'm playing on this album doing the bass trombone chair, covering for Weston Sprott, who was supposed to have played it, but Weston was busy, I don't know, playing with the Met. You know, go figure. If you got to make an excuse, you know, yeah, right? You dig?
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I love Weston. I got a great story about him too, but I'll save it.
Okay.
Anyway, but here I was years later, covering for Weston. He's like, yeah, Mike Dees has got this big band album out, and it's called Relentless.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'll come in and play it. And we were going through the rehearsal and playing through it and such and working on the tunes. And he had this one tune where he had this just ridiculous trombone solo written in it. I think it was on Webster Grooves. Yeah. And it's one of those where everybody's going, and it's in my part as well, playing in the same octave, but I'm playing, you know what, let's just drop this thing. So we're playing it, and I dropped an octave, and they come back on the recording, and Dees gets on there and says, did you play that down an octave? And I was like, yeah. He's like, shit, can you do the whole thing like that? It's like, I've done it twice already, you know. Yeah. But it was a really fun moment to share with him too, because, I mean, you know, there's a lot of great bass trombonists in New York City. And there's a lot of guys there who are like Dave Taylor, and of course
George Curran.
Yeah.
Yes, George. Thank you. And of course, hanging out and hearing these guys play and the influences that they put upon the world of music and such. I was listening to see if there was a guy out there on jazz bass trombone who could go ahead and display facility and control and chops. And it's really funny too, because at one point I'm hanging out and I'm playing years ago at the Savannah Jazz Festival with Wycliffe. And he's on tenor trombone. I'm not bringing my tenor trombone out. That's like putting a knife to a gunfight. You know. So I brought my bass. And everything he did, I did an octave lower. And then the octave higher. And then just playing around. The best part about it was that we actually just got to hang out afterwards and have some beers and enjoy a cigar and just chat it up. He's one of my best friends now. And in fact, when I was moving to New York, Wycliffe, well, Cone, Dre gives me, you know, he's, that day I'm there, he's getting the Jazz Journalists Association Award for Best Trombonist. So we're meeting over at the Blue Note, and I'm hanging out there, and I walk in the door, and there's Joe Lovano. It's the first person I see, and Judy Silvano, and like Ron Carter, and you know, it's just this who's who. And I'm just like, ha, ha, literally. I mean, you know, don't let the drool come out. But, you know, and of course, one of my dear friends in New York now, Jerry Gibbs, wonderful jazz drummer. They call him the Thrasher. If you ever listen to his recordings, you'll understand. But he's there as well, so at least I had a friendly face there to go ahead and relate to, along with Cone getting the award. Afterwards, Cone's going to give me a ride back to the digs up in Washington Heights. So I hopped into the rental with him, and we're just talking shop, because it's like, yeah, man, I got to see you in your home state, but now you're up here, and it's like, you know, you're big stuff. I understand. He's like, man, ain't nothing but a thing. He says, Ron, here's all you got to do. Just shut up and play. Just do it on bass trombone, because there's a shitload too many tenor trombonists up here anyway. And if you do the same things that you do on tenor that I know you do on bass, you'll be fine. You know, and it's funny because then I started subbing on Wicked without Doug Proviance's approval because he hadn't heard me before.
Oh.
But then he did hear me and he went, who the hell are you? You know, yeah. He says, man, but then he had me subbing for him on Christian McBride and doing the Jimmy Heath stuff and everything. Yeah. And I owe the brother a lot. He's an interesting cat, man. We call him the governor of New York. He's one of those guys that once he got into the city, he got all the best gigs. Mm-hmm. What was it when he's the, I think it was Cats when it opened in New York, he was the bass trombonist for it. Mm-hmm. How long was the run? Then he went over from that one to I think it was Phantom, and played that for years. Now he's on Wicked, which is now going into his 16th year, and fortunately, that's one of the musicals that will not go away, courtesy of the plague. Yes, but it freaked me out when they closed Frozen.
Oh yeah,
you know this shit is bad when Disney says nope.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I was over there subbing for Jeff Nelson along with like 7 or 8 other guys. Before I came down to Austin to play the musical Aladdin, I went and sat in the pit with the guys up in New York and took the book with me, which was nothing like the Broadway book. Because it was like a double book, but it was like tenor, bass, trombone. Okay, your second horn here, your third trumpet here, your fourth horn here, you know, and I went in and I played it. I played the shit out of it. And the conductor is so funny. His name's B.A. Comes up to me at one point and says, we've been in all these other cities and you're the best trombonist we've worked with. And I've been waiting to say this. And it's like, I'm from New York. I'm not from Austin. And he was like, we were having such a great time playing it. And I told him that, you know, in particular, I had a chance to check out the book. Mm-hmm. So I knew it was up ahead of time. And I shedded it for about 2 weeks along with the tape that they sent me. Once again, though, going back to the whole COVID thing, it's crazy how much of this has changed now.
Yeah.
You know, and we're living into a new reality, which now it's really funny because I've only been working with like FaceTime and Skype and teaching lessons and such for about maybe 7 or 8 years. But all of a sudden now I've got a lot of people calling me up and saying, hey, how does this work? Because I'm trying to use this. So I recommend, you know, if you're doing the private lessons, you can go through Skype and FaceTime or use Zoom like we're doing now. Mm-hmm. You know, Facebook Messenger has a chat room that you can go ahead and set up as well. But I'm going to be changing over from the home page of Facebook the way it is now, just turning into a musician page. Yeah. Because aside from that, it's gotten to the point where it's just so political and at times so divisive. And I understand it's the social network, but it's gotten to the point where it's the stupid network. And besides, you know, I can always post on Insta. Yeah. And go ahead and do that stuff. And, you know, I mean, there's other platforms as well. In fact, one of my buddies, Dominic Palumbi's great jazz drummer out of New Jersey. He's been doing stuff now in New York. Young cat, very smart. He's been using Twitch, which is a gamers app, which is awesome because I broke out the PS4 as of late, and I'm watching Becca play through what was it, The Last of Us 2. She just
yeah.
It's so dope.
Yeah,
it is so dope. I played the first one, and it was like the graphics alone, but the reality and such, and you're in the control here, and yet you're trying to make sure that the characters, you're wondering who's going to live, who's going to die, what's happening. I mean, it's like I'm literally watching a movie while I'm gaming out on this. So going over to Twitch now, what Dominic has done as a drummer is that he has been posting videos of himself playing, at times using some video game soundtracks, other times just practicing and doing stuff like this. And he's got like over 10,000 followers, I believe.
Crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like it's another platform.
Yeah, what's
But
great about it too, it's a lot easier to monetize than all the other ones because you
yeah,
get subscribers.
exactly.
Yes.
And I've been experimenting a little bit, but at this point right now, I'm looking forward to going ahead and getting the chops on and start doing the video series again.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, but instead of trying to do it every day like I was before, because I was just being ambitious, it'll probably be like anywhere from once to twice a week, and I'm going to focus on specific things in particular with each session. But I really like the fact that when I was doing it, I got to the point where I used the idea of being able to just lay down blues changes and tell everybody which key we're in. And it's like, okay, we're going to trade fours.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool.
That.
I love that.
I love that shit. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, you sound great.
It's awesome.
I hear you.
It's like
I hear
Dora the
all five of you.
Explorer.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Oh.
Oh, God, I snorted. But I mean, yeah, that's a great analogy. Thank you. But I mean, I love doing that. And I got so many results from people sitting there going, no one else is doing this. Hey, what key can we do this in? You know, it's like all of a sudden it's like, okay, here's some patterns for improvisation that I put together years ago on major, minor, pentatonic, diminished, and augmented. I'll send you a copy, Gina. By the way, just to give a shameless plug and all, thank you guys for doing this.
Of course.
I mean, seriously, you're providing a service. I was just doing another trombone podcast yesterday with Nick Schwartz from the Met, bass trombonist, and Sebastian Vera, principal with Pittsburgh. They've got this really nice podcast on, and we just had a blast. And it's like, you know, these are the interviews, if I'm going to do, these are the ones I love the most. I'm hanging out with my fellow peeps, and we're all boneheads. We're all trying to figure out which end of the slide to use to empty the water and spit out of. If you sound like ass, then it's like shit coming out of it, you know. And I mean, this is the hang.
Yeah.
This is the hang. You know, I'm having to go ahead and prep and shave and all this stuff. And next thing I'm on CNN makeup, you know, all that shit.
Yeah.
You know, no eyeliner, just rouge. But still, it was just getting the message across because I was the latest poster child for COVID. Now it's like, now I get to talk to the musicians and we get to all share certain experiences in this and not only dealing with this virus, but also how important it is to go ahead and just stay aware and current as while you're still trying to foster your art. You're still trying to go ahead and maintain that musicianship, that creativity. And I mean, we're in the most challenging times now. And there's a lot of guys who've been practicing and hanging out in their homes and doing this are like going, oh man, what else can I do? It's like, oh, that's easy.
Yeah.
That's easy. That's not hard. You realize how many more resources we have now just because we can go online and Google the shit. You
are just in general like a really, really positive person. I feel like that has a lot to do with staying like you're not like, it's not that you're motivated, it's just that you just have like a love all the time in your being.
Yeah.
Like you resonate love. What like tell you know how can we resonate love like you, Ron? I just want to know.
Well, you got to make sure you use the proper sativa.
Okay.
We'll start with that one.
Down.
Okay. All right. Listen, I know a guy off of 46th Street. That's all I'm saying to you. All right. Anyway, ever since I was a kid, honestly, ever since I was like as early as I could remember, I always had this wonderment for things. And, you know, the first time I got attacked by a cat, it was like, oh, nice kitty. I had no idea I was getting the shit clawed out of me. When I was 5 years old and discovering what my voice was and growing up in a Christian household, singing in church, getting that oral tradition of the Black church, Southern Baptist, I roll my eyes because I understand what's going on. You know, I've learned a lot over the years, but I've always kept that sense of wonderment. I think that was one of the things. I you know, at age 7 or 8, being able to whistle and sing along with a bird, just because the bird's going, and you're going, you know, singing riffs back and forth, holding conversations, being fascinated by nature, animals, science, mythology, history, all those things I'm still jazzed by them. I still realize that part of my being a creative, especially especially in light of what I've been through, which I really don't remember so much of the coma, but still. It's just allowed me to go ahead and just breathe in gratitude now, because I appreciate every moment of it. The times when you just suck so hard that you're like going, all right, I quit, and you throw the horn down the stand, then you realize you just damaged a $5,000 instrument, and you're going, ah! Or, you know, or the moments where you're just like, you play something so simple and yet so pure, and you don't think it's that good, and then you listen to a recording of yourself and you start crying. Because it was better than you thought it could be, because all of a sudden you're sitting there going, is that me? It didn't sound like me. That wasn't me. No, that was you. That was you. That was you bringing out what's in your soul. That was you bringing out what's in your heart. Radiating light, radiating darkness, being able to find yin and yang, balance. All these things have been a part of the growth that I've gone through in study of history, religion, philosophy, psychology. And I've always tried to keep an open mind to all of it, because that's how I was raised. My mom was a career educator. So I was taught English and diction and grammar at an early age, but I was also taught to appreciate the value of a good book. And I still love to read. I'm just looking at the New York Times and the Goodreads summer list. Yeah, you know, we could go all the way over here on the room.
Yeah, I see the side of it.
Oh yeah, you know, I mean, this is the new digs, but I've brought a lot of books with me, including the method books, which are over in about 2 cabinets over here. I still enjoy reading that stuff, but I also find now more than ever to get back to where I was, this is giving me a chance for a restart. Now I'm already finding that I'm doing things more efficiently now with my buzzing as well as my playing and getting the sound on the horn. Here, I'll show you guys a quick one. Let me grab a mouthpiece real fast. Quick little exercise.
Here it is.
This is so cool, but you gotta have some chops to pull it off. Take your bass or your tenor, you know, or whatever floats your boat. Play a B flat major scale. This is something I've been doing recently that's just like happening. Cool. Now I'll play it. Okay, here's the chop buster. Take the outer slide off.
Oh.
Now buzz the same thing. Yeah, go ahead. I'll wait.
Yeah, I want to try it now. I'm like, wait a minute, what's that gonna feel like?
Okay. Listen, cool. Got you. Yeah, let's do a bass bone thing. We'll just call this a single trigger. I'm doing my George Roberts tribute. Okay. I love you, George. I love you. Okay, so you guys heard me play through the B flat scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's all do it together so I can remember what the hell I just played. We'll do it on the slide first. Then we're going to take the slide off. Okay? Now, this is going to blow your mind. And then when you put the slide back on again, play the same scale and see what happens. Okay? So, all together in quarter notes. 1, 2, 3. I could explain it a little bit more, but you guys figured it out. You're professionals. Cool. All right, take the outer slide off.
Right.
Now, using your air and your chops, not the tongue. Play the same scale.
Okay.
Are we red-eye?
Yeah.
Here it comes. 1, 2, 3. You notice the harmonic breaks that you had in that?
Yeah.
Put the slide back on. Play the same scale. And a 1. And a 2. And a 1, 2, 3. What's the difference?
A lot fuller sound.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Lots better too.
No charge. Here's the catch. You show this to beginners and they all freak out and they all want to try and do it, but they'll mess up their embouchures because they don't have a mature enough face to pull this off.
Exactly.
You guys have mature embouchures. You play regularly and you practice and work on this stuff. So therefore, you're able to do this. But now here's your challenge, because you notice how many notes you missed trying to go up and back down again. Now you got to find those notes.
Mm-hmm.
It comes down to being able to utilize the embouchure to maintain facility and flexibility. You have to be able to push the air through and yet be able to control the focus on it. And then when you get back on the slide again, you just relax and play, and all of a sudden your sound goes like 20 to 40% bigger. Yeah. It's a crazy thing. Here's your assignment, my dears. All 12 major scales.
Ayo. Okay.
One octave. Cool. One octave. But
got it.
One without the slide, and then one back on with.
I love homework.
I like homework.
I'm here to help. I'm here to help. Although, Gina, I'm not that surprised with you.
Just give me something to do.
Yeah. Going stir crazy. Ah! Okay. Yeah. Here's your assignment for the week, Ken.
Oh my God.
I miss you.
I miss you too.
Thanks. It's good to get the hang in. Try not to kill yourself. By the way, tell your sister I said hi, all right?
Okay, I will.
Cool, man. She's so cool. She's so cool. I had the best time with you guys over there at Birdland.
Mm-hmm.
It was a blast having you in. Speaking of, in light of the way things are going up there now, I don't know how Birdland's going to come back the way it was. I mean, every place is closed. The Vanguard's now doing their online concert series. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the Blue Notes do anything like that. I know that Spike over at Smalls has been like, pushing that so hard, and they're going to be able to survive the summer. But this shit's not going to last just through the summer. This is going to last like for years. Yeah. So
even if the virus doesn't last for years, like the coming back from it is going to be years of recovery. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Not to mention, look at it from the standpoint of how bad New York rent is. Oh yeah. And there are people who won't be able to pay their rent this month, which means they'll be behind 2 months or maybe 3 months or possibly 4 months. There's rent forgiveness, and then there's just, okay, we're going to wait until everything's better, and then we're going to go ahead and charge you out the ass. Yeah, that's basically what's happening. Like, they're like, oh, we won't evict anybody until said date, but then that date you're going to be backtracked. Yeah. Whatever amount. That's so messed up. Which means you could owe up to anywhere from 6 to 8 months of back rent. Which is crazy. Once again, being a creative living in the city, this is so weird how this all worked out with me with COVID and everything else, but I can't help but feel like I got out at a good time. Because when I came to and I saw Becca there and I'm talking to her as best I could, and I'm asking, what did I miss? And she said, not much. Yeah, nothing happened. And it's just crazy. I was talking to Mark Miller last night. He's on his way off to Wisconsin with his family there. His wife, Lori, who's a teacher, she's just gotten on her break now because, once again, remember when all this stuff really started up and kicking in around February or so? Yeah. And literally here we are by the time we got into March, all the schools were closed. Airlines, all of this stuff, everything was drastically affected. And yet, to go ahead and throw in my comment on that, this country, with all its resources and with all the ability and all the bright minds and such, we could have done stuff about this a lot faster. We should be leading the cause towards less deaths and more science instead of more deaths and less science. And it makes me sick. I'm old enough to remember the civil rights movement of the 60s. And to see things and to see presidents go through levels at times of corruption and dishonesty, but I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen anything like this. And it's like the perfect shitstorm. Because you got this mass unemployment, you got this virus that's killing everybody, and then all of a sudden we go ahead and now we're starting to actually become aware and awoke again that, oh my God, Black people's lives do matter. It took us this long. Yeah. But it's like, and I got friends of mine on both sides of the aisle saying, all lives matter. I said, yeah, that's great, all lives matter. But what good is all lives matter when I'm the one who's being pulled over in my nice car by a cop who figures that because I'm Black, I'm profiled? That's not all lives matter. That's your life matters. That's not my life. What we're trying to get everybody to understand now is that if we're all a part of being this melting pot of America, then we all have an equal say-so. And we should be treated with same equal justice under the law. And it's been so savagely disproportionate for people of color throughout this country for generations. It's terrifying. It is. And, I'm glad to see the movement happening. I'm glad to see people being involved and active.
and I'm glad to be able to put my voice in behind them. But also, I remember after 1968, the Watts riots, and then next thing we had Rodney King in the 90s, and there were riots and everything, and then, but the shit all dies down, and people seem to forget because all of a sudden they want to get their lives back to a sense of normalcy, and this is not normal. Living and being in a racist society should never be considered normal. That's just stupid. Because if you look at the real roots and the biases of racism, it's stupid. Absolutely stupid. And yet I still have friends who stand by their beliefs in it. But, you know, oh, I'm not racist, Ron. I have black friends. Wow. Yay. Don't you feel special? I guess you want me to go ahead and make sure I can give you like a Zulu tribe warrior sash or something to wear when you kneel down in Congress. Whatever. I'm glad to see things happening. And like I said earlier, and I will say this again to you too, my dear, yet younger peoples, it's up to you! Mm-hmm. All right? I'm
gotta go vote!
Yeah, well, that's it. But voting is one thing. Keep the protests up. Uh-huh. At least in New York, they're talking about one of the articles I read from the New York Post was saying that there were fewer cases of COVID even during the riot, during the protests and all, because everybody was wearing a mask.
Yeah.
The only people that weren't wearing masks were the police officers, and they had face shields on, but that's not a mask, you know. And I tell people about this as well because they asked me about COVID. What can we do? I said, check out this one news article. I saw this on the Today Show one morning, where the journalist came on and she coughed in a petri dish without a mask. Then she coughed in 3 other petri dishes wearing a cloth mask, an NS95 mask, and another like hospital-based mask. After 24 hours, you could see bacteria forming on the one dish that she coughed on without. No bacteria on the other 3. After 60 hours, the petri dish that she'd coughed on without mask was covered in spores. The other 3, nothing. Yeah. So even if you have it or you don't have it, wearing a mask, not just for your consideration, but for the consideration of everybody around you. Yeah. It made me so proud and wish I could have been in New York because I'd have been out there and marching as well. As it was, I was recovering from bedside going. Yeah. And I hope more can come out of this now, not just in terms of the vote, yes, definitely. But in terms of just let's get more legislation passed that's going to make things on a more level playing field. Then let's see how great a country we can really be. Let's start off by taking care of the natives of this country that are Native Americans and the shit that they're subjected to. Let's take a look at this one in terms of being able to take care of the Black community and get us onto a level playing ground where we have equal opportunities all around the board. And let's make it a level playing field for white people as well. Because there's a lot of white people I know out there as well that feel like they've been subjected and subjugated and they need love too. You know, I can't begin to tell you about all my other friends from around different cultures from around the world because I look at it from the standpoint that we're all of the same thing. We all bleed red. You know, some people say red, white, and blue. It's like, I didn't, you know, you got white corpuscles. Congratulations. But, you know, white blood cells. But the thing is that, you know, it's all red. You are all pretty much children of the earth, no matter which part of the earth we come from. So, you know, let's kind of keep that in mind, especially when we're dealing with a pandemic or a virus that has killed so many and yet could be at least not so much controlled yet, but we could at least slow the spread. That's why I'm really pleased to see what's happening in New York because they've slowed the spread down. And now they're looking at phase 2, but everything's very gradual. Yeah. But even they, with Cuomo, the governor of Connecticut, and also I think it was New Jersey, they're all saying the same things about limiting flights coming from these other states like Texas or Florida that have high infestation rates. Well, I'm cool, and the people who I'm with here on this end are cool. But if we fly back up there to New York to hang out, we got to sit in like quarantine for 14 days. I just hope they let me hold on to my horn. I'll put a practice mute in and just blow for a while. And if nothing else, people will be so thrilled they'll go ahead and put money in my Venmo account. Hooray! Which I have to admit, going back to the fundraiser thing, it's been doing really well. But you know, bills are coming, man. And
tell us one more time the website for people who want to donate.
RonsRoadToRecovery.com. If they want to check out for the new album, go to ronwilkins.net. You can see some of the videos and some of the stuff I've done with the Becker Patterson Ron Wilkins Big Band, along with my own small group stuff. You can go to my YouTube channel. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. I'm not that hard to find. There's not that many Ron Wilkins out there.
Yeah.
But there's a few. There's a few, of which I'm proud to share the same name and spelling.
Yeah.
So
you Google Ron Wilkins bass trombone though, and it's just you.
Yeah, that's cool. Does that mean pictures of me when I had my dreads?
I don't understand.
Yeah, actually, yes.
Yes.
I got distracted because the Google Home was talking, but yes.
Wow.
I just remembered.
Damn
when
you,
we were
Alexa.
looking for pictures of for the poster, I was like,
Oh
wait,
my
okay,
God.
this isn't. I don't
Yes,
think
it
this
is.
is gonna be.
On my first album, I had dreads. I had braids and dreads down to my mid back. And there's one picture of me where I'm jumping up in the air and the hair is just flying, but I also was weighing about 245 pounds then. But hey, you know, it was a svelte 245. Yeah, sure. All those years of weight training. You know, I mean, those are great photos. They bring back a lot of memories. But more so as I think about the music that I was doing at the time. And that particular moment was really a happy one because in 99 and 2000, those are at least the first album, a tribute to the Masters. You can still find copies out there somewhere, and maybe I'll go ahead and regenerate some more of those once I get the new album out. The second album I did, which was it didn't get nearly as much play, was the one that I did with the tenor trombonist who was with the Ringling Brothers Circus for years, a guy named Bill Gibson. Sick lead trombonist, 6 octaves of chops, and just a kook, just an absolute kook. But I wasn't blown away with the project. We did some really nice stuff on it. I was really pleased overall, but it just didn't have the legs to fly. And I felt like it was one of these albums because it came out after the stuff with Bill Reichenbach and Michael Davis. And my friend Bill was like, really into that and trying to catch the wave on that end of it. And I sought more originality. So now, you know, it's like one of my next projects over the couple of months here is just going ahead and recording myself more and doing like using different apps to go ahead and like play along with myself. But I'm experimenting all the time now. You know, I've got better gear here at the place in Austin so I can go ahead, and my friend Michael, who's runs a studio, is bringing in a lot of his gear from the studio. So I'm going to be experimenting with more loops and seeing what I can do on that end of it. The biggest thing is just making sure that I keep the main focus on all of it in any project I do on the creativity. And that's where the love comes in once again. The joy of being able to just be a creative, to come up with old or new ideas, to be able to go ahead and rework and remanufacture and at times regurgitate, but always for the sake of trying to be able to be a creative. To me, that's probably one of the most important things that I could pass on to anyone as far as what we do in this world. Whether it's, you know, as my father would say, whether you're a ditch digger or you're the president of the United States, if that's your real passion, then you have to be able to bring all of that passion to it. And it has to not only be just for yourself, but it has to be for everybody that you're serving, everyone you're working for, everyone you're working with, even if you're working for and with yourself. Another thing my dad told me as I was working as a freelancer throughout San Antonio and then Austin and doing all these gigs, that's great, Ron, you're paying yourself first. So it's like, I came to take that to heart, especially studying economics in terms of music, because this business is harsh. It really is. And we play jazz music in a very small market that continues to be smaller, even though you think it should be one of the biggest markets in this country alone. Last year, I'm doing workshops in Germany and Holland, more so, hanging out in France, performing in Japan. And everywhere I went in Europe, people were just like, oh my God, that's so great. You got to stay here. You got to play. You got to make music. And you can do it. You can do it really well. Then I come back here to the States and it's like, do I have to cover Old Town Road and put my own spin on it? Because there's about 5 or 6 different big band arrangements of it right now that are out there. Oh, come on. This is part of the gig. But what do you bring that's going to give it a familiar? What are you going to bring that's going to make it innovative? What's going to be creative about it? You know, I'm waiting for Brad Meldau's version of it. It's going to be killing. You know, to hear Herbie play it would be phenomenal. To hear Dees play it would probably just like, I'd have to wear Depends underwear. Just because that guy's so fucking good. You know, I mean, you know, Jim McNeely writes for the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra, Old Town Road.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing is that it's stuff like that too, because of the level of creativity we bring within the music of jazz and improvisation that allows us the means of being able to say it the way we want to say it. I think that's one of the reasons why when people ask me, well, you know, you're a jazz musician. It's like, no, I'm a musician, but I love jazz. Jazz was one of my first loves. I was telling the guys yesterday on the Trombone podcast, or the Trombone Retreats is what they call it. I've had the longest relationship with music. It has outlasted any other relationship I've had, physical, mental, or emotional. I read Ellington's book, Music is My Mistress, back in the 80s. And it's like, man, motherfucker gets it. When you eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff, and you shit it as well, you know. My whole life has revolved around music. And the greatest joy I've had has been being able to share it, whether as an instructor, whether as a performer, whether as a composer, whether as an arranger, whether as a singer, or whether as a, you know, playing Tubby the tuba lines. Back to the video series I was doing. I got more joy out of playing bass lines for people and saying, okay, you got 2 choruses, here you go. And I'm playing these bass lines and trying to keep everything cool and groovy and such. And then we start trading 4s, and it's, you know, afterwards I'm just laughing so much just because it's so much fun. So, you know, I'll be getting back to that again too. I'm looking forward to that because but the other side of it is that I'm going to open up the door too so people can go ahead and go over to, I want people to send me their clips. Mm-hmm. You know, I want people to send me the clips of them trading and such, and see if we can build something further off of that. Let's use the community as a whole, because this isn't just about me benefiting from it. It's about everyone benefiting from it. And if we can do that, and we can keep that focus in mind, then yeah, we'll beat COVID and anything else that comes along, because we can actually start looking at it from a global perspective instead of just a narrow view of my country's better than yours, but we treat our people worse because they are inferior.
Yeah.
You know.
Can you
go, girl.
Talk to us about like your process of finding an endorsement company that works for you?
Ooh, good question. Okay, so here I was coming out of North Texas, and I'm using my rep and such after playing with Clark Terry, and I'm talking to people about who are in the business, and they're telling me, man, put together a resume, put together a bio, get your business cards out there, hit the trade shows. And in San Antonio, where I was growing up, one of the biggest trade shows in the world is the Texas Music Educators Association convention every February. I don't know if they're going to do it this coming year, but it's gotten to the point now where they have over 5,000 to almost 10,000 music merchants from around the globe showing up. Not to mention they get all these high school kids from around the state who have participated in and have been selected for the all-state ensembles, wind ensemble, orchestra, jazz bands, 1, 2, and 3, choirs. And these kids come from all over, and their parents come from all over, and the instrument companies come from all over. So I'm out there and hawking my wares and talking to the instrument companies. And that's how I got an endorsement with Bach. I started with them, was with them for about 4 or 5 years, in part because I want to hang with Bill Watrous more often. And, you know, it took Bill and I a while to kind of get used to each other, because I was playing his shit back at him on a regular basis because I love him so much. And I transcribed the shit out of him. I still go back to the first time that I heard this, and back in my junior year in high school, my band director was trying to keep me out of trouble with the bad kids. So he sits me down and he's like, you like trombone playing? I want you to listen to this guy. His name's Watrous. He's out of the West Coast. So he put on from the Manhattan Wildlife Refuge album, the first one, the song Fourth Floor Walk Up. And it's the first time I ever heard anybody hit a triple E flat. And he started with it. The trumpet player ended on his F, same E flat, triple for us, the double F for them. And Watrous hits the same note out of the fucking blue. And I shat myself, figuratively speaking. I'd never heard anybody who could do that on a trombone, not to mention all the facility and chops to go through the whole cadenza, the way he did it. And you knew that this wasn't something that he wrote out. This was just like off the top of his head because he was that badass. And that got me going. I mean, listen to JJ play and the way that he would construct his melodic ideas and such, you know, I thought it was cool, but when I was a kid growing up, my dad would be listening to Dexter Gordon or Sonny Stitt or Gene Ammons. So I understood the melodicism and such, but I was transferring over to trombone, and I was like, yeah, that's great, but he sounds kind of like a sax player. Duh. But the thing is that there's JJ, who is still the father of modern jazz trombone. And from him, such as Bill Watrous, among others, sprung from. But Bill messed me up for a while. I got to play with him back in the 80s. One of the craziest concerts we did. Because I had seen Bill around and such, and people that told him about me as this guy coming up, and I had been in the Air Force Band for a while, and we were playing this world-class jazz festival. It's called the Fiesta Jazz Festival, which happens for a fortnight, during a fortnight of the Fiesta San Antonio Festival. You have all these parades and everything, but the St. Mary's University, this Catholic Marianist University, sponsored this jazz festival that's been now going on for over 55 years. Because the fathers love jazz. Faith in Jesus, lad. Yeah, give us some of that there, Charlie Parker. He's a fine lad, he is. How about that Louis Armstrong? So I taught at St. Mary's University, and there were some fathers there who would go there. Oh, Faith, laddie, how are you? I'm like, wow, Father O'Malley. Anyhow, but we're playing this jazz festival, and Bill was the guest artist. And I had written this tune with the help of a lead trumpet player on the band who was also an electronics guru named Mike Aldridge. And we wrote this tune called Mojo, which was kind of a fusion reggae big band thing with like swing for solo sections in it. We actually had it on one of the band albums. It came on a live album that we did called Live at a Texas Jazz Festival by the Dimensions in Blue. It might be hard to find because it's one of those albums that, you know, the military would put out free albums every year. So one of the joys of being in the Air Force Band for me was where I was recording every year. Concert band, big band, chamber brass, among other things. I don't know if you'll find it, but, you know, happy hunting. If you do, check out Mojo. It's one of the first tunes of its kind where a big band is integrated with pre-recorded synthesizers and electronic tape. But it's all groove-based. So, you know, you would have these things at the beginning of it that would start off kind of ethereal, and then you get this groove-based thing going, and then the big band would start kicking in with the bari sax and the bass trombone playing the riff along with third trombone and second tenor. And then it would expand throughout the ensemble, and I'd use a structure of fourths playing through on it. And then, you know, everybody would go ahead and kick into the first section, which is the tenor trombone playing this riff. Bop, wee, doo dee, bop, boo da doo, wee, doo dee, wee, doo da, ba da, zip da dee, ba da, ba da da da, ba da, da da da, ba da 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 da, and we'd just go back and forth with that. When we got into the solo section, I stole a lick from one of my dear friends, Rick Lillard, who was the jazz trombonist with the Airmen of Note back in the 70s and 80s. On their Christmas album, he did this lick on We Three Kings, where he plays the beginning of the solo. And it starts on the middle F, F above the staff, to a high A flat above that, a third up, and then back to the F again, and then ripping up to the double C, I think, or the double B flat. And it was just ridiculous. So I used the same lick at the start of my solo, but instead I would go ahead and play a double F, glissando up to the A flat above it, go back down to the double F again, F, E flat, C, B flat, A flat, and then rip to a triple F. And I pulled it off maybe about 50 or 60% of the time once I got ahead and got my chops in better shape and not squeezing my face so hard with a mouthpiece. But we played this piece before Bill came out. And we were doing this in rehearsal. And we were just checking everything to synth with the tape, along with the big band. So I said, let's just play the whole tune. You know, we'll be back and playing in about 6 or 7 hours. Just give it a shot. I had brought the tune in with Mike. We had brought the tune in about a month beforehand. We had a chance to rehearse it and such and tweak as we went. So here we are, and we're playing this tune, and right at the time we're starting to play it, here comes Watrous coming in with one of the vocalists from the band, Verley, who was a fantastic singer. So she's bringing him in and finding out what a lech Bill was at the time, because he was such a dog at moments. You know, I love the cat dearly, I really did. I miss him to this day. But we played through the tune, and I did my solo and ripped, and I played a better solo that afternoon than I did that evening, just because he was right there in front of me. And afterwards, we finished the tune. Everybody's cool. Yeah, we're good. We're good. And I'm sitting there going, man, I hope I impressed him. I hope I impressed him. I hope I impressed him. Well, I did, obviously. Because then when he comes into the bandstand, I'm the first guy to meet him and shake his hand. I'm going, Mr. Watchers, this is a great honor for me. I've been one of your biggest fans since back in the 70s when I was a kid. I can't begin to tell you the joy I'm feeling for just being able to meet you and know that we get to play together. And he looks me in the eye while he's shaking my hand, and he says to me, direct quote, God damn it, you son of a bitch, you stole all my licks. What am I going to play now? Right?
Yeah.
And I'm standing there and I'm going, how? I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that. And he's like, what the fuck am I going to play now? You just played all my shit. Which is in ways, he's giving me actually a compliment. But he had come off of a long road trip, and he'd been dealing with some shit, and particularly finding out about testicular cancer. He confessed this to me later. But when he first said it to me like that, I had no idea who this guy was in terms of as a person. So all of a sudden I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what the hell is wrong with you? It's like, okay, old man, let's dance. So that night we played, and we went back and forth with each other, and afterwards we were complimenting and being really cool about it and everything and having a couple of drinks. But I always had this vibe on him after that. And it wasn't until years later when we got to hang out at Texas Bandmasters Convention when we just really got to sit down and have a heart-to-heart. And he actually apologized. He said, because I said this one, and it was supposed to be out of respect, but I was going through a lot of stuff, so I was just pissed. And, you know, he'd been in Australia playing concerts, and James Morrison was there playing with him. And Morrison, he's like, if you've heard James play trombone, whether it's a superbone, whether it's a slide tenor, or whether he's on a freaking trumpet, I mean, the man is ungodly. Just, whew, one of the best and finest brass artists I've ever heard in my life. A true freak of nature, and a lovely chap. He's fantastic people. But holy shit. So here's Watchers coming from having hung out with James for about a week, and then he comes up and he's figuring he's going to have an easy time because he's going to play with this Air Force band, and all of a sudden he meets me. And I'm playing his shit right back at him again because I love him so much. He had a hard day. And it happens to all of us. And I understand that because I've had hard days too, where I've done a lot of stuff on the road and expected to play up to a certain level and such. And you know, sometimes you just don't handle things well. It's just part of being human. I still look at him and the other guy who messed me up as well, and also had a chance to meet and had a much better experience with, was Slide. Because I first discovered Slide back in like the late 70s, listening to the World Trombones album, and then started researching him and finding all the stuff he did over in Europe. The big band writing and the small group writing and the album Exodus is still one of my favorites of all time. But he plays there's this one album he did called Melody, spelled MELOW-DY. He plays the tune Chop Suey. And he does like about 20 choruses on it. And he never repeats himself. And it's just the most phenomenal display of creativity and chops and bop and swing. I never heard a trombonist who could do that stuff. I listened to Curtis. I listened to Jack Teagarden. I listened to Julian Priester. I listened to Lou Donaldson, the trombonist out of the Midwest. All great players, all fantastic chops. Of course, Fontana, Rosalino, all these others. But when I first listened to Slide, I got scared. I wasn't scared with other guys, but I got scared because I couldn't figure him out. I could figure out Fontana, and I can play Fontana solos back at you now. I could figure out Watchers. It took years. But Slide, that was like a decades-long study because he's that deep. Still to this day, he's one of the real fathers of modern jazz tromboning, especially what it takes to play it in a bebop setting. Everybody gives JJ credit, but when Slide came along, once he got into the States, and I started hearing him playing with Woody Shaw and Dexter Gordon, among others, it's like, there had never been a trombonist that was like him. There never will be. And not to mention, motherfucker could play day and night. If you couldn't keep up, it's like, what's wrong with you? You're not practicing enough. And to hear that from him was like, oh shit, I'm not practicing enough. Okay, no problem, Mr. Hampton. I'll be back in a year. Oh, and a year later, I'm coming back and I'm more inspired. And somebody's like, yeah, that's all right.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah, you know, I love Slide. I love him. I haven't seen him in a couple of years, about 3 years or so. I know he's still hanging in there.
Mm-hmm.
And he still has cats over like Peter Lynn, among others, who still go and occasionally go and visit and get to play with him.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't had a chance to go see him. You know, I know he's not doing that great, but still, just to show face, because he appreciates that and he deserves it. I mean, just the library of repertoire that he's put out alone. I recently, as about 5 years ago, found this album that he did where it's all of his compositions for the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra. And there's just powerful, moving stuff. But you know that there are certain signatures that Slide puts in the way that he approaches harmony, because he'll play the one and he'll put like a substitute dominant chord on top of that to stack it. And it all fits, and it relates to an incredible color and extension. And in the middle of that, you get this killing bone solo. Just like, it make you weep. It's that good. And I've cried over Slide Hampton solos. Partially because I couldn't play this shit. I transcribe it. Okay, I got it. Oh, God, this is hard. I have an easier time transcribing the Omni book and putting in all 12 keys and playing Slide Hampton solos.
When you're bad, you're bad.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? And he is super bad. Mm-hmm. Super bad. I owe him a lot just because the school of Slide Hampton, it's like the school of Dizzy Gillespie and the school of Clark Terry and the school of Coleman Hawkins and the school of Lester Young and the school of Louis Armstrong.
Yeah, exactly.
All praise. I've been so fortunate that over the years I've been able to go ahead and study these cats, not just listening to them, but study them, you know, really get inside the head, read the books, read the solos, transcribe them, read the transcriptions. And it's just masterworks. And I got my favorites still to this day, you know. The Wayne Shorter pre-Weather Report and Weather Report. Slide, J.J. Johnson, all the Mosaic box albums, the Mosaic series. A number of artists, Freddie Hubbard back from the CTI days with Creed Taylor Industries, or Creed Taylor Incorporated, and doing Red Clay, you know, or Solar. Well, the album was Polar Ice was actually the album. Listening to Coleman Hawkins playing Lush Life, you know, listening to James Moody singing it, Moody's Mood for Love. These are all cats who I listened to and maybe didn't establish as much of a personal relationship because I looked at them in the same way as a deity, you know. And then I got to meet them, and hanging out with guys like Jimmy Heath in particular was just, I miss him so much. What a lovely, lovely man he was. Not to mention that going to wearing my Spurs gear and we talk NBA hoops. Yeah, I remember the Pistons, man, the bad boys. You guys put a licking on them, but they kicked everybody's ass before that. It's like, yes, they did, Mr. Heath. Yes, they did. By the way, when you were writing Togetherness, why did you do this progression going into the third chorus? It's just marvelous stuff that, you know, when I was a kid growing up, I got a chance to meet Maynard Ferguson, and I just, you know, I went slack-jawed with like a million questions in my head, and none of them came out of my mouth. It was more like, hey, why do you play so high? Whereas is that, you know, can you tell me about the yoga studies that you did to help you to work on your breathing so you could develop and maintain your chops for 50, 60 years? After like 3 major lip surgeries, no less.
Yeah.
You know, he became more efficient. He became better in control. And it's like, I'd see his concerts back in the 60s when I was a kid to when I was listening to him in the 90s. And it's like, how can you sound better than ever? It's efficiency. It really is. And I teach that in particular as well when I'm going through foundations and fundamentals. Being efficient on the instrument. It's not just that you move a slide back and forth. It's like finding alternate positions where you can play them in tune and lock in on them so that way your solo doesn't go, but it goes, and you're not working your arm as much, but you're unaware of the positions and the diameter and the distance, as well as the intonation. And all that shit takes fucking years. So the 10 years in the Air Force Band gave me the means of being able to practice and work on all the shit that I didn't have together when I was in North Texas. So when I came out from the Air Force Band, I had all that stuff going on, and it was just like hustle, 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 teach, work, play shows, live, breathe, eat, feed family, feed myself, and in the process, utilize the tools to get out there and get known and heard. I was on a bunch of other people's albums before I did my own in '99. This one that I've got now, we started back in 2018, and now it's going to come to fruition in 2020. But I'm already working on the projects for the next 5 albums, including the next big band album, which is going to have a bunch of stuff on it from my friend Paul Baker, who loaned me a chunk of his library out of Austin, Texas, along with my original material. And this one thing, the one project that I'm working on next, songs from my childhood. Because my older brother, my younger brother, and I, my dad bought us one of these old TAC reel-to-reel tape decks, and we used to go ahead and record ourselves on it. So we come up with little characters like, you know, Habalooty Haybees, the Black Cowboy, you know, Crackerby Gyps, his trusty sidekick, you know, would beware the Habalooty Haybees, and all these little things, you know. So these are things that now I've actually gotten to the point where I came out of my state of slumber. Thank you, COVID. These are all of a sudden songs that I had in my head based upon the things that I remember when I was a kid. So that's part of an album project I'm going to call like Songs of My Childhood. You know, take certain songs that you grew up with, like Mary Had a Little Lamb. What happens if you play Mary Had a Little Lamb with the giant steps changes on it? Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was as white as snow, and everywhere Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. That's how it sounds. That's how it sounds, because you hear the progression. Damn you, John Coltrane. I've been scarred for life. I've had so many people ask me questions. Who's your favorite instrumentalist? Right now or 20 years ago? Or I had these people ask me these questions when I was doing these interviews for the local hometown ABC and NBC affiliates, along with the newspaper and stuff. Who's your favorite jazz musician? Oh, I don't know. Who's your favorite jazz musician? You know, okay, Louis Armstrong today, but then it's probably Wayne Shorter, or it might be Joe Henderson, or, you know, Gracchus Moncourt III. Oh my gosh, we're reliving the civil rights era. Who's your favorite jazz musician? Charles Mingus.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Max Roach.
Duke.
Absolutely. Wow. I'm having so much fun here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm eventually going to have to.
You.
Thank you. I'm eventually going to have to eat.
Yeah. Well, we have one more question to ask you.
Yeah.
That we have to ask you, because we ask it every week. So yeah. This gets submitted this is a submission question.
Oh boy.
Independent versus dependent valves, and why?
I'm an independent guy.
Mm-hmm.
I started on them, and I came to figure out that the things that gave me the best facility was all of a sudden realizing I could play in G flat. Mm-hmm. And it made things so much simpler.
Yes.
And then I listened to David Taylor, and I'm going, man, how do you do that? It's like, oh, dependent. And I'm like, fuck. Yeah, Dave, you can do that. So yeah, man, you should check it out. So I tried a dependent system for about 3 years, fell in love with it, but I always went back to independent. I mean, it works so well for me. And the setup that I have now, in particular, one of the things, I think, Gina, we talked about this a while back, one of my dear friends, W. Newell Sheridan, Newell, created this thing called the Get a Grip, which I use on my horns. And since I've been getting back on and getting my strength back together again, I've been using the one from my bass trombone.
I have one.
Yeah.
Those are great.
Yeah, these are awesome. These are awesome because they don't cut off the circulation nearly as bad. I tried some of the other, like a bullet brace that Edwards made, but it would cut off the circulation between my forefinger and my thumb. And if you're playing a recital and you're doing a concert, by the second hour, you're like going, ow. This is a little bit wider and very well padded and cushioned and such. One of the things that I'm also getting back to again, because I was doing this about 2 years ago, I was one of the clinicians for the Dutch Bass Trombone Open over in Holland. And Juco was his name. I can't remember his last name, but he's one of the guys who designed the ergo bone setup. You know, it's like the harness that you can have. You can go ahead and put the metal rod onto it and clamp it onto the hand
this
brace.
part or the
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you can put that. You have the extended part you can put between your legs. He made one for euphonium and tuba players. He's made one for trombonists. One of the first cats that I really met in New York that I saw using it regularly was Art Baron.
Say that. I was like, is he gonna say art?
Yes, the Baron of Art. One of my favorite raconteurs and jazz trombonists, not to mention one of the greatest plunger technicians I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
He can make that thing talk and walk and cry and speak, and he's one of Duke's bones.
Yeah,
You can check out the autobiography.
Yeah.
Check out the biography on Duke Ellington. Duke's Bones, it talks about that trombone section. Him in it, along with cats like Mel Wanzo and, of course, the great Lawrence Brown. And so many others. Britt Woodman. Oh, I love Britt Woodman. He was on a Toshiko album a few years back where he plays this thing called like the American Suite or something like that. And his tone and his vibrato is so gorgeous, but he's like showing off the upper register and the tessitura as well. Oh, I just fell in love with him. What a cool cat too. I never got to meet him, along with so many others as far as that goes. You know, now I look back on this as well. We talk about dependent versus independent, and I go back to George. George played a single valve and played the shit out of it. And to me, it's like, okay, I guess I have to work on false tones now, you know. So that was one of the things too. On my first album, I played a hybrid Bach. It was a 547 bore with a 9-inch gold brass bell on it. But I also was at the point where I was practicing a lot of false tone work. So I did this one tribute tune to George called Out of Nowhere. I'll send you a copy. All right. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and send you a Dropbox link for you guys of the first album so you can check it out. But on Out of Nowhere, that's my tribute to George Roberts because the album's called Tribute to the Masters. The first tune I did was Donna Lee's a tribute to Charlie Parker and to Jaco Pastorius because the electric bass player on it was a Jaco head named buddy of mine named Jim Calson. Phenomenal 5- and 6-string bassist. One of my dearest friends. And the cat who was on the first album. We start with that one. We go over to like Once I Loved as a tribute to Jobim. We do Caledonia as a tribute to Louis Jordan. We did What a Wonderful World where I sing like Louis Armstrong on it. It's a tribute to Pops. Gentle Rain, a tribute to the Brazilian master Luis Bonfa. I've always loved Luis's writing, his orchestrations. It's marvelous. And then Around Midnight is a tribute to Monk, where it's solo bass trombone with about a good 6.5 octaves. It's pretty ridiculous, but I'll send it to you guys if you want to use that as part of the clip. Knock yourselves out. I'll send you the link when we're done.
Awesome.
Great.
So we'll hook you up. I'll send it to 8VB, and I'll also dig around. Give me about a couple of days, but I need to go ahead and find that file that I have with the etudes, with the patterns. Because I did 10 patterns for the major and minor pentatonic, and of course the diminished and the augmented scales.
Awesome.
So it's colored at the hookup. It's still handwritten, but it's readable. Knock yourselves out. Let the dancing continue. There we go. What a dig. What a gig. Guys, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
The love fest continues.
That's right. That's right.
Cool.
We really appreciate your time. Truly.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And for just
Especially right
wisdom
now.
that whole way.
Yes.
Well, you know, I'm believe me, I'm honest to God, I'm glad to be alive so we can share this.
Yeah.
So it's a lot better than the other way. Posthumously, this is our tribute to Ron.
Oh God.
Oh my goodness. Don't even say that.
Yeah, don't even.
That.
No, I can say that. I can say that. I'm talking about myself. It's all good. It's all good. You know, seriously. I'm here. We can have this conversation. It's fun. When I'm not here, it'll be a party.
Yeah.
It'll be a big party. And that's what I want, you know. It's like Sideham's going to go out with a 20 trombone salute. I want to go out with a 76 trombone salute as a tribute to Meredith Wilson.
Yeah.
As long as you don't play 76 trombones, that's fine. But, you know, I appreciate the moment. And I appreciate the gratitude and the honor and the tribute. But more than anything, I love you guys. Thank you.
We love you too, Ron.
Yeah, I mean, let's just keep sharing that, okay? Oh, and let me know how you do after a week of doing the major scales with and without a hand slide.
I will let you know.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it'll scare you. It'll scare you because it'll get your chops in such crazy shape. After a month of doing this, go back to doing everything else that you're used to doing. But, I tell people, like, this is one of those exercises that if you really want to work on what it takes to play the instrument, check it out from the way that when it originally started as a buccine, as made in Roman times around 6 BC, where it's just a straight horn, a horn taken from an animal. You have the shofar in the Jewish world, a ram's horn. Those things are hard to play, but if you put a mouthpiece on it, you can blow some tunes.
Yeah.
But the overtone series changes drastically. And all of a sudden, it's not a matter of being able to, you can try it with the F valve, you can try it with the G flat valve, dependent, independent, knock yourself out. But if you don't have a hand slide on it, it's going to rock your world.
Yeah.
It's going to rock your world. I'm at the point now where I can do these scales in like 5 octaves like this.
Whew.
And it's a workout. It really is. But I've been getting back to working slowly on that by doing 1 octave and going through all 12 keys and torturing myself, so to speak. But it's it's the sweetest taboo. Thank you, Sade. It's a really good exercise. If you ever feel like you're getting to a point where you can play really well, take the hand slide off and play a major scale 2 octaves without the hand slide, and see if you can lock in on every pitch. Pull a tuner out if you want to really make it harder. Pull a tuner out and try and do it, and see what happens. And all of a sudden, you're going to find that, okay, but you want to be careful, because if you mash too much of your embouchure, then you're kind of changing things to the point where you're doing more active. The activity should be within the rim itself. Outside of the rim, no, but within the rim, which is also another thing too. Try doing this exercise when you're practicing it. Play it in front of a mirror.
Yeah.
Watch your face and see what happens.
That's weird.
Yeah. I mean, seriously. Let me know. I'll talk to you in a week.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds
Let me
good.
know. And anytime I can come back on and hang out with you guys is fine by me.
Killing.
Yeah.
Good
Thank
to
you so
know.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, please. I mean, I was talking with the guys over with yesterday's podcast. I mean, we brought up everything from Texas barbecue to the difference between Texas and North and South Carolina and Memphis and all this other stuff. Oh man, we're gonna have a barbecue show, and then we start talking about single malt scotches. And Nick's like going, okay, we have to have a show about that one too. and so it's like, yeah, whatever we wish to talk about, as long as we can keep it within the context of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, as low brass artists and musicians who play it this way or sometimes this way, but more so this way or this way, depending on how you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
This is all important stuff. And we have the most unique community. I've hung out with the trumpet players at their conventions. I've hung out with saxophone players at their conventions. I've hung out with hornets at their conventions. Trombone players, it's like at the Dutch bass trombone open, I'm hanging with Brant Atema, who's one of the finest bass trombones and contrabass trombonists in the world.
Oof. Yeah.
Phenomenal. He played a pedal D at the end of this one concert where I was in front of him, and I literally felt my underwear move. Literally. I mean, I'm not kidding. And after I turn around and look at him, I'm going, you son of a bitch. that was fucking sick, dude. Yeah! And, but, I mean, the one thing is like, we're doing all this stuff, and after we go out, we're all drinking beer. We're all hanging out. We're all having a great time. We're talking about life, living in the pursuit of 7 positions. Or when you add both valves to it, 23.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not even talk alternate positions. That's another story. I do remember at one time coming out of undergrad school and being in the Air Force Band and coming out of a 6-hour practice session and just being so frustrated because there was no way I was going to cover everything. There's no way. There's too much. Dizzy Gillespie said it best, I think. I could live to be as old as Methuselah and still not know everything I need to know about how to play, how to make music. It's a lifelong pursuit. And for those people who get frustrated because they've been cooped up in a room for like 3 months trying to figure stuff out and play, and there's not enough to do, you got to be fucking kidding me. You've got to be fucking kidding me. Oh my gosh, I'm so bored. I don't know what else I can work on. Here, let's play the Botcello suites, not the Doug Yo ones. Let's play the original manuscript, and you can do double stops trying to go ahead and play through these.
Yeah.
I can't do that. Well, you got something to do now. You know, oh my gosh, I just heard Slidehander play this incredible solo from the album Melody, Chop Suey. I could never do that. Have you transcribed it? No. Well, you got something to do now. See me in 23 choruses later.
Exactly.
You know, oh my gosh, I played through that and it's phenomenal. In all 12 keys? No. Well, then you got something to do. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to figure out how to play this bird solo. Do you have an omnibook? Yes. Can you play it down 2 octaves? No. Well, you have something to do. You know, yep. Phil Wilson used to go ahead and play bass trombone etudes on a tenor trombone because he had such facility on the chops. And he's down there in the same register as me. It doesn't sound like a bass trombone, but he can play it. I mean, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like, Phil, what are you doing? Ah, babe, it's just what I do. You know, what a cool cat. What a cool cat. These guys like him, among so others in my life that I've listened to and I've had the pleasure and privilege of meeting and working with, or just listening to them on the recordings. Guys like these are all of what have made in me to where I am now. I came to realize, you know, at a still fairly early age, just how great it can do to do it on a bass trombone. And people look at it and it's like, oh man, I was on this gig and I saw this bass trombone player there. And I'm like, man, what are you doing? We're playing Chicago. It's like, I can play Chicago. I'll do it 8vb. It'll be great. I'll use the same inflections, you know. Oh, I'm sorry. You want me to play it in the same octave as James Pankow? Okay, fine. Here we go. How's that sound? I don't know. It's not James Pankow. Duh. It's Gina. You know. Duh. It's Chris. Hey, man, can you play some skunk funk? Yeah. Can you do it on bass trombone? Yeah. How'd you like it 2 octaves lower? You can do that? Yeah, sure. Dees, Webster's Grooves. You really playing that in a line and
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds great. Let's do it. Didn't come out as clean in the mix, but it's still there. And I'm like, yeah, man, this is what a bass trombonist does. This is what we do. We play your shit in the same register. We play it an octave above you at times. We play it 2 octaves below you at times. Well, it's a slide, so it's all the same. No, it's not. Whole different set of chops. As doublers, we all know this. You know, Gina, you're on your tuba. It's a whole different set of chops, right? Absolutely. Oh, well, it's the same notes. It's a whole different set of chops, man.
Yeah.
Chris, you're on that BAC. And you go from that to your bass trombone. Oh, but they both have a slide. No, it's a whole different set of chops. Yeah, I saw the tuba too. So I know.
Oh, he's in a little lean.
That's in a little lean.
Yeah, just to make sure, Ron, no, look, really.
It's there, I promise. I can hit the low C from Lion King, I promise.
Oh, George Flynn.
Oh, my goodness.
I was listening to the recording of him playing that in hopes to be able to sub on the show. I didn't get the chance to sub on it, but I played well over 280 shows of Lion King, the touring show. That pedal C has been one of the banes of my existence, just because I'm doing it and I was playing it on, I couldn't do it on B flat, even with a 4 valve at the time, just because you got to pull the slides and get that thing to happen and speak. And if you try and do it with a setting that's proper for the tuba, it's still going to be a little bit sharp. But then I came to realize, hey, bud, it's Broadway. It's a warthog fart. That's what it is. George plays a warthog fart better than anyone I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Literally. I got tuba players who play and they go, it's the pedal C. That's great. You sound like you're playing in an orchestra. You're doing Mahler. It's not Disney. It's not a warthog fart. It lasts that long, but instead of going, you go.
Yeah.
And there are all the kids in the audience going, it's Pumbaa! It's Pumbaa! Once I realized that, playing that note is easy. You let your lips relax, you set the embouchure, and you literally just blah, 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 blah. And that thing comes out, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, that's what we wanted. Would you like the smell to go with that? No, this is the sound. Thank you.
Ew.
Anyway, Yeah, I almost hate to end on that note, but it seems to be the bass trombonist.
Literally ending on that note.
Literally ending on that note. Or from South Park, the brown note.
Exactly.
Yeah, the brown note, the one that causes everybody all over the world to shit all at once. That low frequency. Eric Cartman found it. Why can't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have no wish to actually have a brown note worldwide contest. But if it gets down to it, is what it takes for people to appreciate the power of music. I can't believe you played that low. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Woo-hoo! I've succeeded. The real life Eric Cartman, no.
No.
But I love those guys. I remember years ago when I first got to play Book of Mormon, and Trey Stone and Matt Parker are just geniuses. And I played through that show, and we did these tunes, and then one particular, Hasadiga Ibawai. I just lost it. I completely lost it. It was just one of the funniest things I've ever played in my life, next to doing the Young Frankenstein, the musical. And that was just irreverent and yet hilarious. Just unbelievable stuff. Great music, great time, great hang. You know, that's the stuff that we do in music that you live for. You know, Gina subbing on the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra. Holy shit, I know you. You played with the Vanguard. Holy shit, what was that like? Oh! Sit down in the chair, strap in, and say, damn you, Doug Proviance. Ah! Hanging out with Jen Wharton playing the gig. Jen, how you doing? Ah! This is great. Let's play the book. I never got to play the bass book. I ended up on third. We got to talk to Doug about that.
Yeah. Excuse me, but.
Yeah, well, you know, tis what it is. I still had fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, stand up and still get to make a solo with one of the greatest big bands in the history of the music. And then there's the times of touring with the Basie Band, or playing with them almost 3 years ago at the Blue Note, at the Birdland for a week. And all of a sudden, I'm a member of the Basie family now, bitches. Best big band in the world. Everybody talks about WDR and the stuff that they're doing and the creativity that they're fostering and working with different artists. That's great. But they don't swing like Basie. No one swings like Basie. No one. And I got to sit there and play that. And we did Little Darling for the first time when I was playing in that band. And I started crying. Because I'm like, this is what it's supposed to be like. All those years of playing with other bands. And now I can do it here. And it's like, oh, shit, I better play the part right. Lay back this way. Lee Tremont looks over Dave Kahn, who I love dearly. He looks over him and he says, yeah, you can stay. And I'm like, I'm in the Basie Band now. I'm in the Basie Band now. No, I'm in the Basie Band. When you get me tickets to Johnny Mathis again? I want to see Lion King again.
Yeah.
Okay, Mom. No problem. No problem. Next time it comes through and they call me up for it, I'll show up. I'll get tickets for you and the family members. And we'll all have a great time. By the way, I'm not making money on that week because of you guys. But that's okay. I love you.
Damn.
Don't forget to go ahead and, you know, don't forget the triple-decker chocolate cake that you owe me for my birthday. Anyway, this has been fun. And we didn't end on the brown note.
No, we didn't.
We didn't. That's good.
We didn't. But,
thank you for your time, Ron.
You're welcome. Thank you, Gina.
Yes,
thank you, Chris.
Yes,
Appreciate you guys.
Of course.
You bet. And
You too.
let me know what happens in a week.
We will.
Okay, we will.
Absolutely.
That's right. That's gonna be
That's
lovely.
how
You know what? I was gonna try and get with Dave and hang out with him because I know he's got mad scientist chops going on. But to sit down and say, hey, well, what freaky things do you do on and off the slide? Because this is what I do. And next thing you know, it's like I opened Pandora's box. He is so fiercely creative. He's one of my favorite people in the world, and definitely one of the greatest bass trombonists I've ever heard, because there's your creativity. Brother's in his early 70s and now late 60s, and he's even more creative and dynamic on the horn than ever. That's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. You know, listen to Ben Van Dyke over in Rotterdam, coming out with the latest recording, working with Steven Verhulst, who I didn't really know about until he did the Dutch Bass Trombone Open. Then I find out the guy's a monster trombonist as well as a composer. You know, listening to Charlie Vernon, Even with him dealing with his stages of Parkinson's disease, still swimming, still breathing, still playing, and sounding like a fucking boss every time. That's inspiring stuff, man. That's inspiring stuff. You know, going over to catch the Arturo O'Farrell, the Afro-Latin Jazz Band, and Earl McIntyre stands up and takes a solo with a plunger on a bass trombone, which is a souped-up version of the duo gravis made by Shires, and sounding like a fucking boss. Not to mention the core and the tone it gets out of it is so direct, it just cuts through you. Laser-like focus, and the guy's been doing this on bass and tenor trombone and euphonium and tuba for over 60 years. And he's just the sweetest scat and a total badass. I am so fortunate. And I get to hang out with you guys who are the future. Okay?
We get to hang out with you.
We get to hang with you.
I appreciate that. So on behalf of me, I will say this to you with all the love in my heart. Please don't suck. I used to do this. I'd have kids coming out and they'd be coming in over Weston Sprott. Here's a quick story. Weston, I remember he was in high school. He was like 4 years all-state orchestra. This young and beautiful young black man coming up into the world of music. And I'm over here and I'm playing outside in San Antonio. I'm on the landing, on the patio of this place called The Landing, which was run by Jim Cullum, who was like a traditional jazz legend. Ran the club for over 40 years. Quite the businessman. And a really, really hot cornetist. Took out the big spider bag. But anyway, I'm out on the patio playing, doing my regular gig, doing the Texas Music Educators Convention. All the band directors come by, and then all the kids come by at one point. And Weston's out there, and he's listening to the music and listening to us play this stuff. And he's digging on it. And I kept trying to get him to come up and play, come up and play, come up and play. And he wouldn't do it. And I remember I said something to him at one particular point that you're going to have to ask him the story. But I said something to him at one particular point to try and get him to come up and play. And actually, I'll tell you, what the hell. It's a good story because it's the truth. And I said, man, you a black man. You need to play the blues. Get up here and play the blues. And everybody around him went, ooh.
Yeah.
I told that story to a couple of the guys who had been studying with over at NYU. And such, and they're like, oh, man, that's cool. I'm going to tell Weston, I talked to you and he should play the blues. I said, he already can play the blues. Give me a break. Weston Sprott can play anything he wants. He's a virtuoso. Mm-hmm. Not to mention just what an absolute sweetheart of a guy. We actually shared that story together when I stayed over at his place over 6 blocks away from Lincoln Center. Yeah. Where he does his job. And I'm like, damn, son, you make black people proud. And it's like, but I've been so fortunate. I hung out with and played with and met the best in the world. And I'm proud to call them friends. So when you guys are talking to your peeps or they listen to this and such and they want to get ideas and insights and such, they can go to ronwilkins.net, send me a link, send me an email, send me a text. Mm-hmm. Let me know what's up and I will try to help as much as I can. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to be working on my own shit too. Yep. So prepare to prepare, bitches. Hey. More to do. Take care, guys.
Yeah, you too. Care, all right. Bye.
Bye.